attorney that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
help me God.
It is left entirely up to you whether or not you testify. Do you understand what I've explained?
Yes, sir, I do.
Do you have any questions whatsoever as to what I've explained?
No, sir, thank you.
Yes, sir. You made a decision as to whether you're going to testify?
Yes, sir.
All right, and what is your decision?
I am going to testify. I want to testify.
Well, good evening, everyone. How are we doing on this fine, what day is today? Today's Thursday. How are we doing this fine Thursday evening? How you guys doing? You spent all day watching this trial, some of the day watching this trial, most of the day watching the trial. What did we think about some of the testimony? I will tell you this. I had some things on the bingo card. Alex testifying might not have been up that high on the bingo card. And that's kind of, yeah. So we're here. But as you guys saw from that little intro video that I did, hang on one second. I have to correct the title to the video because I still titled the video as being day 22, and it was in fact day 23. So with that little correction, here we are back in the swing of things. Yeah. So who had Murdaugh testifying on their bingo card? I didn't know if he would. I didn't think he would. But then again, there was an additional thought. Before we get into too much of this, I do want to say something here. So there's going to be a lot of opinions. There's going to be a lot of opinions on the credibility of the witness, on essentially statements he makes, and on innocence or guilt and the punishment that should be inflicted upon the person if he is found guilty. I will say this at the outset, and I want to be kind of perfectly clear on this one. I am completely 1000% fine, regardless of the opinion that you guys formulate. If the opinion is that he is guilty, if the opinion that he's innocent, if the opinion is he's a liar and deserves all of these things, I'm fine with those opinions. What I'm not okay with is, please, no bashing each other in the chat. You can respectfully disagree, and that's fine, but no bashing each other in the chat. And then for purposes of the YouTubes, because YouTube reviews live chat after it's been posted, please no diagnoses or saying that someone is going to deserve something that might not be totally kosher. And if people start showing up in the chat, this is just a request to the mods. If we wouldn't mind just reminding people from time to time that we're not going to bash each other tonight on this, because there's a lot of emotion here. I saw it when I was watching the testimony. I saw it throughout the nights covering this trial. This is a sensitive trial. And there are a heck of a lot of opinions, and a lot of them are justified. And just trying to make sure the channel stays up on the YouTubes. That's pretty much where we're at. And I'm also trying to make sure that we're having productive conversations, not unproductive conversations. Because with some of the testimony that came this afternoon and the cross-examination, I know there's going to be some thoughts. So let's do this. At the outset, we're going to do a little poll, because I imagine that some of you have been watching the trial, may have seen the testimony itself. Let's see this. After Alex testified today, did he sway you? Did his testimony sway you in one direction or another? We're going to leave this. Yes, leaning more towards guilt. Yes, leaning more towards innocent. I can't say innocent is going to mean not guilty here. I can't say not guilty. I'm going to say leaning more not guilty. And as charged, well, not guilty. No, still guilty. No, Still not guilty. We're going to do that because I'm honestly curious. I'm very curious as to how you guys perceived the testimony that came in today, because it was a little bit interesting to watch. So, yeah. And when I say leaning more towards guilty, thank you, Lauren L, for that. When I say leaning more towards guilty, I mean leaning more towards guilty of the crimes with which he is accused. I'll ask a question later about how you feel a jury might decide. But for right now, let's stick with that because there's a lot here. So before we get into some of the clips, I want to give you kind of a caveat here because for those of you who were watching Peter's recap or have come from Peter's recap, I don't even know if he's still talking because it was one of those things of trying to navigate because everyone's going to want to talk about this case. For those of you who are here from any of the recaps that you've seen, I completely lost my train of thought. This is what happens. Caveat. What was I going to do? I was going to basically leave a qualification here. Oh, I was texting with Peter all day and a bunch of people all day kind of going, oh my gosh, are we really here? What is happening right now? What is happening right now? One of the things that is a scary part about a defendant actually testifying is the defendant themselves opens themselves up to a lot of different cross-examination. It's not the cross-examination that you're really afraid of. What it is a lot of the stuff that I wrote down, and I'll get there in a minute. It's a lot of the phrasing and words that are used by the defendant when they're testifying. Things that can be used on cross-examination or closing arguments to try and make the point of one side or the other. Once that witness takes the stand, the attorney loses control over a lot of the things that are said. There's a way to navigate evidence that's admitted. I mean, there's a way to navigate evidence that's been admitted prior to this in closing argument. And I think that prior to him taking the stand, I think I was leaning a lot in the direction of, heck, there might be an acquittal by the jury because of certain discrepancies in the timeline. And when I say acquittal, I mean of the charges with which he is charged, of the charges with which he's charged. That being that he pulled the trigger on both of these individuals because of the timeline issues. Now, I don't know that a lot of the testimony today swayed my opinion on the timeline issues, but it certainly might have impacted my opinion on how a jury might perceive Mr. Murdaugh and whether he is ripe for judgment, etc. And that's part of the risk. So you saw that initial clip of him essentially acknowledging that he wishes to testify. And let's do this. I want to pull up that 1 second here because I think that I can do this. Let me see if I can pull this up. Video file. I wonder if I can get to that moment because I really do want to get to that moment. When he does acknowledge that he's going to testify, I was very intrigued and I replayed it 3 or 4 times. So let's see.
Mr. Murdaugh, if you'll come forward and stand.
Yes, sir, I do.
Do you have any questions whatsoever as to what I've explained?
No, sir, thank you.
Yes, sir. And you've talked with your lawyers about whether or not you've testified. Mr. Harpootlian just suggested advice he's given to you. The court has no comment whatsoever as to whether you should or should not testify. But do you wish to confer with lawyers some more about whether or not you should testify?
No, sir, I don't need to talk to them anymore.
Have you made a decision as to whether you're going to testify?
Yes, sir.
All right, and what is your decision?
I am going to testify. I want to testify.
All right, very well, thank you.
Thank you.
Look at the attorneys.
I am going to testify.
So Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin are up here. They know the answer. They've talked to their client. They know the answer. Sometimes they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. This might be one of those moments. Jim Griffin is not really looking forward to this moment. And I don't really I sympathize with him because it's one of those things where he knows he's going to have to do the direct testimony on this one. It's not easy. It's not easy. because you're putting your client up there and your client can go wayward on you, and you don't have very much control at all, especially with a witness that wants to testify and wants to say stuff. And this part's really important, because here's a problem that Jim runs into during some of the direct examination. One of the problems he runs into is that Alex Murdaugh has sat in this courtroom for the entirety of this case so far. He has sat in this courtroom and he's heard all of the evidence, which means he's eager to confront all of the evidence. What that ends up doing when you are an attorney examining your witness on direct, you then have to navigate a motivated witness. And I don't mean it in the way that you guys might perceive it. Not motivated in the fact that the witness is motivated to say something or another. It's that this witness is motivated to go beyond the question asked. They want to answer not just the question you're asking them, but whether it's ego, whether it's a trust issue, whether it's just nerves, they want to go beyond the question you're asking, and they want to answer all the other questions. They want to go and they want to answer everything. They want to confront the prosecution. They want to confront the evidence they've seen. They want to confront the cell phone data. They want to confront the photos. They want to confront everything. And that creates a big problem for the attorney, because the attorney needs to keep them focused. And you saw this with some of Alex's direct testimony. He wandered a lot. It was rather frustrating. So let's go ahead and do this, because I think that every attorney is pulling this exact clip. I really do, because it was perhaps one of the most impactful beginnings to a direct examination that I would have imagined. And it was good in that he needed to come out of the gate and do it, but man, did he come out swinging hard. So let's last point on this particular part, when he says he's going to testify. I want you to look right over the shoulder of Dick Harpootlian. Look at Creighton Waters. Look at him looking at his notes, because he has an idea of what's going to happen, but he doesn't know for sure. So look at Creighton Waters over there, who's going to be doing the cross. Watch him.
With lawyers some more about whether or not you should testify.
No, sir, I don't need to talk to them anymore.
Have you made a decision as to whether you're going to testify?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what is your decision?
I am going to testify. I want to testify.
All right. Very well. Thank you.
You see the little nod? Do it again. Watch the little nod.
I am going to testify. I want to testify.
All right. Very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, we'll have one.
Mr. Waters has been waiting for this cross-examination for the entirety of the trial. And he came in pretty well prepared. So let's see how some of this direct examination begins, and let's start with the fireworks that happened. So let's see if we can do the YouTube thing. And yeah, that's hang on one second here. I want to pull this one up. Let's see, where was it? Creighton nods. Oh no, the chat's moving too fast. Chat's moving too fast. He didn't roll his eyes. I see people saying he rolled his eyes. No, he nodded. He nodded. And it was a nod of, all right, here we go. It was a nod of an attorney that knows that this moment might come. They're not sure it's going to be there, but then it shows up and the attorney's like, all right, here we go. So Creighton Waters at that point in time, and I was so mad at all of the coverage today because I wanted to see the prosecution table the entire time. I wanted to see the prosecution table. I wanted to see the attorneys there writing notes. I wanted to see Creighton Waters and see whether he was focused on what Alex was saying or if he was focused on his own notes. I wanted to see all of that. But of course, the media pool just didn't really think of us lowly attorneys that are out here watching and wants to see all of that stuff. I wish they could have, because I would have loved seeing their reactions to watching some of this stuff. So yeah. All right, let's get into some of these. I'm going to hit some of these questions first before we get into that. So I'm not doing this. I do read the comments, guys. I know that sometimes I let the questions go a little bit late so they don't have context, but I do want to hit those pretty quick so that I'm not getting too far in the weeds. What happens if Alex lies when they ask him a question? Thank you, Syria Black. Very much appreciated. It depends. If the attorney that puts him on the stand knows that he is lying, and I mean knows, not suspects, not has evidence of, not is pretty damn sure, knows that he is lying, then the attorney is required to correct the lie, which puts Jim Griffin in an interesting position because Jim Griffin is a friend. He knows him. This is really hard. I mean, this is not an easy direct examination. When Jim gets up to do this direct examination, I think I screamed in my office. I think it scared the hell out of my law partner. Trufflehound, he wants to testify. I smell hubris. That might be part of it. Nala, thank you very much. Hit that like button. Lawyer, you knows. Lawyer, you knows, I imagine with the apostrophe S, that's everyone that came from Peter's stream. Thank you guys very much for being here. I do really appreciate you guys being here. Yes, please hit the like button. We're doing pretty well. We might get to 200K by next week, so it'd be pretty neat to do that. I would be very happy if we were able to do that. So if you like the content, please subscribe. At the very least, take 2 seconds, hit the like button. I'd like to see this stream get a little bit of traction. It'd be fun. So, but will we ever know the truth? I have real questions, especially after today. I have real questions that we're ever going to understand the real truth of everything that happened that night, especially after today. So Lauren, thank you. Today felt very much like we were all David after the dentist. Is this real life? Regardless, shocked that Jim and Poot thought this would be helpful. I don't think they thought it'd be helpful at all. I think they were counseling their client up until the very last moment that he maybe should not do this. I made a comment on Twitter basically saying those client meetings, being in the room during those client meetings must have been fun. Thank you, Heart-Shaped Isle. Very much appreciated. Wish you had a Scottish option for not proven. Would be a hung jury to make retrial more likely. Hi from Australia, where it's Friday morning. Hello. Happy Friday. Happy Friday indeed to you. Let me see here. Poot complaining about how expensive it is to put up defense witness. We'll get to that. We'll get to that while the defense team stays in a $20,000 per week estate. We will get to that at the very end. I saw that. I promise you. Thank you. Joy Daly, thank you. It's my birthday tomorrow, turning 43. Happy almost birthday. I hope that you have something fun planned. At the very least, get outside and enjoy some weather. If the weather's good where you are, have a nice birthday weekend and enjoy the vacay. Jasha 10 Haig, thank you. Good evening, Rob. Thank you for going through the day in court with us again. Have a great live stream. Thank you very much. 9-Inch Nails Gal, love your recaps. U.S. court hours are not friendly for Aussies. I don't think there's enough for beyond reasonable doubt. A lot of people are going to reach that conclusion. And a lot of people are going to reach the conclusion that guilty. See? Guilty of charges, not for this trial. So difficult. Thank you, Diana. Very much appreciated. Way too much financial on cross. Repetitive. Thank you, Joe. Other people had that opinion as well. In this one too, I like these comments. It's me, Josie 81. Great. You're seeing this as a lawyer. I see it as a juror. I don't think it was bad. It helped me to hear his words. I have believed not guilty and it stayed that way. That is a very interesting perspective. And thank you for sharing that, because I am very curious, because as a lawyer, I'm looking at this stuff from the context of having tried cases and I'm trying to gauge what it is I'm looking for, and seeing how you guys perceive it really helps, really does. Paula, thank you. I feel he's not guilty due to lack of evidence. However, as defense lawyers, do you defend people that you think are guilty? Yes. Do you do this by finding holes in evidence or lack thereof? Yes, you do. You do, because the state has a burden to prove their case, especially in a case like this, where SLED and the investigation by both sides, the investigation was shoddy. And the state is the person who holds your life in jeopardy. There's a reason we use that, jeopardy. Your life is forfeit if the state wins if they win their case. It's not something we play around with. And when defendants walk, most times it's either because A, they're innocent, or B, the state did not do its job. The state has almost unlimited resources. For every person that's making a comment about Alex's resources in the experts he has brought to bear, that is nothing compared to the state. I know it's a lot. I know it's shady. I know it's miserable. Listening to the testimony towards the end of the day, really strong opinions about this guy, really strong opinions. And it takes a heck of a lot of effort from my part to take myself out of that emotional reaction and really try to view the evidence. And I imagine there are a lot of jurors doing the same thing right now. So yeah, C minor, OP, 67, thank you. His excuse of lying because of paranoia was bad. If innocent, he wouldn't know the time of death. So why lie? Just not a modicum of evil that it was anyone else. It's possible. Gate, thank you very much. Okay, let's do this. Because that last comment made this one even more relevant, let's go ahead and watch the beginning of this direct examination, because this is where the fireworks start, right at the very beginning. It's really, I mean, I did not see this coming. Guys, let me know if you can hear the audio. I just want to make sure, because I tend to either forget to put the thing up on the screen, or I have it muted sometimes. So let's watch the beginning of cross-examination, and I'll go back, or beginning of direct examination by Jim Griffin, and I'll try to go back and star some of these messages that you guys left while I was giving my monologue. So here we go.
You lay down the Bible and raise your right. You swear or affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You'll have a seat on the witness stand. Adjust that microphone. And if you don't mind stating your full name again and spelling your last name.
I'm Alex Murdaugh, Murdaugh. Good morning.
Yep, you're going to hear stuff today. That's this trial. I'm sorry. You're going to hear stuff.
Mr. Murdaugh, on June 7th, 2021, did you take this gun or any gun like it and shoot your son Paul in the chest in the feed room at your property off Moselle Road?
No, I did not.
Mr. Murdaugh, did you take this gun or any gun like it and blow your son's brains out on June 7th or any day or any time?
No, I did not.
Mr. Murdaugh, did you take a 300 blackout such as this and fire it into your wife Maggie's leg, torso, or any part of her body?
No, I did not.
Did you shoot a 300 blackout into her head, causing her death?
Mr. Griffin, I didn't shoot my wife or my son anytime. Ever.
Mr. Murdaugh, is that you on the kennel video at 8:44 p.m. on June 7th, the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
It is.
Were you in fact at the kennels at 8:44 p.m. on the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
I was.
Did you lie to SLED Agent Owen and Deputy Laura Rutland on the night of June 7th and told them that you stayed at the house after dinner?
I did lie to them.
Did you lie to Agent Owen and Agent Croft on the follow-up interview on June 10th that the last time you saw Maggie and Paul was at dinner?
I did lie to them.
And in the interview of August 11th, did you tell Agent Owen and Agent Croft, did you lie to them by telling them that you were not down at the kennels on that night?
Yes.
Alec, why did you lie to Agent Owen, Agent Croft, and Deputy Rutland about the last time you saw Maggie and Paul?
As my addiction evolved over time, I would get in these situations or circumstances where I would get paranoid thinking. It could be anything that triggered it. It might be a look somebody gave me. It might be a reaction somebody had to something I did. It might be a policeman following me in a car. That night, June 7th, after finding Mags and Paul, don't talk to anybody without Danny with you. All my partners were just repeatedly telling me that. I had a deputy sheriff taking gunshot tests from my hands. I'm sitting in police car with David Owen asking me about my relationship with my wife and my son. And all those things coupled together after finding them, coupled with my distrust for SLED, caused me to have paranoid thoughts. Normally, when these paranoid thoughts would hit me, I could take a deep breath real quick and just think about it, reason my way through it, and just get past it really quickly. On June the 7th, I wasn't thinking clearly. I don't think I was capable of reason. And I lied about being down there. And I'm so sorry that I did. I'm sorry to my son Buster. I'm sorry to Grandma and Papa T. I'm sorry to both of our families. Most of all, I'm sorry to Mags and Pawpaw. I would never intentionally do anything to hurt either one of them.
All right, so we have a lot to unpack there. And I know it's kind of funny because that's like 2 minutes of testimony, but there's a lot to unpack. So Jim Griffin coming straight in with the questions. He has to. He has to. It was a good start. I don't know that he had to go that graphic with it, but he has to confront those questions. These questions have been sitting on the minds of the jurors for the past 5 weeks. They have wondered about the Snapchat video. They've wondered about the lies. They've wondered about all of these things in the past few weeks. You have to come straight in and address it immediately. I thought this was a good start. This is how you're supposed to start in direct examination with a defendant. You have to get them to immediately confront the charges against them. So that said, it took what, 5-6 questions for them to get to what we knew was coming, the opioids. I'm not going to say that that's a red flag one way or the other, but it was something that we saw coming. Regardless of which individuals you're believing throughout this testimony, he was on a lot of opioids. So I'm not saying no because drugs. I'm not saying all of that stuff. What I'm saying is that was where they knew they had to go. That was where Alex knew he had to go. Whether it's true or not, that is up to the jury to weigh. 100% up to the jury to weigh that decision. And you guys can form your opinions one way or the other. Other part to that entire examination was, I highlighted 1 or 2 things here. I see people making this comment quite frequently. He nodded yes when he said no. Body language experts say no. That's not what that is. That nod can be approval and looking for approval, or at the very least, an awareness that something is happening. He knows he's anticipating this. They have gone over this, and he has probably gone over this direct line of questions 9 million times in his head. So when he's nodding, he knows the questions are coming. That's that nod. Why did he start in such a harsh way? Because he had to. He absolutely had to go straight out there and go right into the meat of the questions. And he had to confront the lie. He had to confront the lie. That video of the kennels has been played left, right, center. Every single witness the prosecution's had an opportunity to bring it up. They have. So he really did have to go hard in the paint on that one. That's basketball reference. But yeah, he had to go straight into that. Getting in front of bad facts. Trufflehound, thank you. Feels scripted. It might. It might. It's up to the jury to decide that. And honestly, it's up to you guys to perceive how you want to perceive that. You guys get to gauge this, whether you believe it or whether you don't. It's up to you. Honestly, it's up to the 12 that are sitting in the box and the 12 that will deliberate. But that, I thought, was a good start to this. I didn't when he makes the comment about not trusting SLED, this might come back to bite him when you get into some of Creighton Waters' cross-examination about how the different, the badge, we'll get to there towards the end. But I thought this was a good start to the direct examination. Now, the other question that I had throughout all of this. So my question wasn't so much about any of the finances or any of the other lies. My question was the timeline. I wanted to hear his explanation. I didn't need it because as a technical matter, he didn't have to prove or say anything other than the timeline existed the way it was. That's been laid out by the state. He doesn't have to technically go and say what he was doing during this period. It's up to the state to prove what he was doing. The state has suggested he was doing things during this period of 8:44 until 9:06 when he leaves, and he doesn't technically have to confront that. But once he takes the stand, you do. Once you make that decision to take that plunge, you have to confront that timeline. So I was very, very curious about this. Hey, Mike, we don't need no stinking badges. I don't wear my credentials. I don't flaunt them around. Ms. Murdaugh does. Like I said, this is not an easy case for me to take my emotional opinions about this particular person and remove them from the equation and try to analyze the pure law. So that said, let me see if I can get us caught up to where he starts talking about the kennel and what he was doing that particular evening. So let's see. I think this is kind of where we begin it. Let's try this. Make sure this works. Here we go.
Previously about Maggie asking you to go to the kennels. Were you tired?
Oh, yes, I was tired.
And you had just had a shower.
Just had a shower.
And you said that, well, did you go with Maggie to the kennels immediately?
No, I did not.
What'd you do? What did she leave?
Yes, she did. She left and Paw was gone.
Do you know how she got to the kennel?
At the time, I didn't, but now looking at these condensed records and understanding the timeline, it's clear to me that she rode with Paw.
And did you stay in the house?
Yes.
For how long?
Not long. I laid back on the couch, put my feet up, and like many times when Maggie asked me to do something that I didn't want to do or didn't start out doing, I changed my mind and decided I'm gonna ride up there. And I did.
And how did you get to the kennels?
I went on a golf cart.
Was the golf cart at the house, the main house?
Yeah, it was. And it was there most of the time.
And when you got down to the kennels, what was happening?
It's just what I thought it was. It was a little bit of chaos. I mean, it was clear to me that Max had just let the dogs out. The two dogs that were out were really her pet dogs. One is Grady. You've heard about a black lab. That's Grady. That's Buster's dog. And the other is the yellow lab that you've heard about. That's Bubba. Bubba was mine and Maggie's dog, but it was really mine, Maggie's, Bus, and Pawpaw's dog. It was a family dog. But Bubba's the dog I hunted. I mean, Maggie loved Bubba. She loved Grady too, but I mean, she had a special place for Bubba. But anyway, when the dogs first were let out, the first thing they would do is they would run. If you look at the overhead picture that you've seen.
I'm interrupting here because this is kind of an exemplar of what I was saying earlier. I want you to look at Jim Griffin while he's doing this examination. Where a lot of times when Alex runs off, because he's been confronted with a lot of this evidence and he knows the evidence is there and he wants to explain it all. The problem is that Jim has to focus him on the questions being asked. He has to make sure he's not continuing to give testimony about everything and anything, because, like I said, words become important. Over explaining. Yep. That a lot of people attribute to indicating guilt. I'm trying to dissuade you of that notion. The reason why I'm trying to dissuade you of that notion is I've done enough of these direct examinations. Let me give you an example here. In a criminal case, the state cannot compel the defendant to testify. In a civil case, we get to put them up on the stand, period. I do primarily domestic relations litigation, divorce law, husband, wife, custody battles. My client oftentimes is sitting right next to me during the entire monologue and all the evidence being relayed by their spouse or former spouse. They have a lot of opinions. They have a lot of thoughts about what it is that they want to respond to because they've heard all of that evidence come in. So when I put that client up on the stand, controlling them and getting them to go back to these concise answers is exceedingly difficult. This is another reason why we caution defendants against getting on the stand and testifying, because we know they're going to want to go off subject and off topic of the question. They have to, because they've just heard it. So I don't want you guys kind of attributing it to just, oh my gosh, he's going all over the place, he's guilty. Please try not to do that, because there is an explanation for it. I don't know if it's that he's guilty in doing it or not, but I'm not putting that much weight into it. In either event, it's tough. Managing a client that wants to talk, holy crap, it is difficult. You have to cut them off, but with a jury, you can't cut them off because you have the jury there, and the jury, if they see you cutting them off, they think you're leading even more. Yes, you guys are noticing that Jim is leading. He's leading. The entire thing is leading. This is why I wouldn't put him on the stand. But again, he has the right to do that if he wants. So it is what it is. And the fact that he's a lawyer, I see people in the chat making that comment. The fact he's a lawyer makes it worse. It makes it worse because he knows the evidence and what it means as it comes in. So he wants to talk. He wants to talk continuously. So anyways, let's keep on going because this is interesting. So we now know he took golf cart down. There was a moment in there that I thought was kind of, read how you want, but how many of you guys have significant others and it's like, hey, I would love for you to do this. And you're like, I don't feel like it. Then they go do it. And then within about 5 minutes, you're like, you know what? Dang it. And then you go down and do it because you just need that moment of thought. I thought that was a genuine moment in there. I don't know if I buy it all the way. I don't know how I'm supposed to take it, but at the very least, I want you guys to think about that when you're in your own households with your own family members, basically saying, no, I'm really tired right now. Then they go out and do the fun thing and you sit there and lay down for 2 minutes. You're like, I want to go do that now. Yeah, I should probably go do that. I thought that was kind of genuine, at least that particular moment. So he takes the golf cart down. Let's hear what happens next. And we've got Bubba. Justice to Bubba. That man, that poor dog needs tons of justice.
There were planted pines right behind the kennels. So you got the kennels and the chicken coop sort of form an L shape. And in that L was some planted pines. First thing the dogs would do is go out in that kennel and, Bubba and Grady, I think, learned this from Bubba, but Grady would do it too. But Bubba had to mark every tree. I mean, he would go and he'd do a little number on this tree and that tree. Dogs do, and it's marking his territory. And so that was the first thing those dogs did when they came out. When I got there, those dogs were in that area. So that's why I believe that it hadn't been long before they'd been let out. Grady was chasing guineas, which was a normal thing to do.
What are guineas?
Guinea fowl is like it's like a chicken. It's a domestic bird that we had them. They make a lot of racket. It's like I know this sounds silly, but it's like a guard bird. Because anytime, they just make a lot of racket anytime anything unusual is going on. If anything.
This is my notepad. I had this open today when I was doing it. And I drew different lines of things that were being testified to. This is how most attorneys will draw their lines on notepads when they're hearing testimony. They'll draw the line dividing. When they hear the direct, they'll put it over here. Then they'll put the cross-examination questions or clarifications over here, their thoughts. So they'll try to recite what was being testified to. Then they'll come back here and say, I want to hit this on cross. I did this because I wanted to kind of think about how I would do cross. And this is one of the first things that really, really indicated to me. Let's see here. The guinea fowl. Where was that in the notes? Ah, yeah, guinea fowl. They're like guard chickens. And then the thing I wanted to hit on cross-examination, well, why can't we hear them in any of the videos? If they're guard chickens, why can't we hear them in the videos? And that's the danger. That's the danger. You hear that stuff, and this is just me having a basic knowledge of this case from watching it. You guys want to see the law. You guys want to see the pad. We'll do that. Sorry. So that's how you kind of do it. You draw the line down the middle, and then you kind of go through and you make your notes of what's being testified to. Then you come back on what you want to hit on cross. And that was one of the first things that I wanted to hit on cross after the intentional remark. But I thought that would be kind of one that would be snarky. And I don't know that I wanted to do that. So why can't we hear them in the video if the guinea fowl are guard chickens? That was a thought that I had right there. But let's see if we can bring this back up.
If anything disturbs them, it could be a person, it could be somebody driving up, whatever. They're going to make a lot of racket. So Grady's chasing the guineas. Paul's fooling with Rogan's dog Cash. Maggie's just kind of standing there watching the dogs, which is normal. And they were in that place. As the dogs are out longer, they branch out more. But at that point in time, they were right there. So that told me they hadn't been out a long time. Bubba catches a chicken. I'm talking to Maggie for just, a short time before Bubba catches the chicken. I take the chicken, I put it, when Bubba didn't chase, these dogs didn't chase the chickens to kill them. And they didn't normally kill them. They did kill them sometimes, but it was about the chase with those dogs. And they were proud when they caught one. You could just tell by the way Bubba would prance to you when he brought chicken to you. He was proud that he had caught it, but he wasn't trying to kill it. And so most times the chicken wasn't dead, and that chicken wasn't dead. But a lot of times they would be stunned and they would be just real lethargic. So you had to take the chicken and you had to put it up somewhere where, the chicken could be by itself for a minute and it would eventually, usually, come back to normal and go on about its.
Perfect observation. This happens throughout direct examination. This is a great observation. Thank you, Maria. Very much appreciated for that. The leading off topic. There were times when he would be testifying where I was sitting there struggling to remember the question that was being asked. And it was pretty difficult to glean where he was going with it. So I think if we go forward by about half a minute, we'll get to where we need to be.
Yes.
Which, both dogs, one dog, do you remember?
I don't know about Grady, but I know Bubba had on his what we call a tracking collar. Paul, for his hunting dogs, Paul had a series of tracking collars. And I think there were 5. It might have been 6, but there's a tracking collar that had a device that would tell you where that collar was, so that Bubba was bad about, he would stay close for a minute, but then he would take off. And he especially do that on Maggie. He would take off and run. And so he had on a tracking collar that if he did that, you could, you could know, okay, he's, a half a mile down here. It's not going to follow him, but so far, but it would follow a good long distance. So you could go get the dog. And if he ran off, which Bubba frequently would do, especially when it was just Mags and Bubba.
Um,
And so Paul probably would have been the one to put that on Bubba.
So you've got us where you've gotten the chicken out of Bubba's mouth and put it up on a doghouse or something?
I believe what I put it on, and I don't remember this, but I've seen pictures and all this, and I saw the chicken sitting on top of the what looks to me like a portable dog crate. Wherever it was sitting on there is where I would have put it up there. You know, have any reason to believe anybody else moved that chicken, and it ultimately that chicken did die.
Susie, there's the answer to your question. Thank you for the super chat. AM testified chicken ultimately did die. How would he know? And he testified just about 20 seconds prior to this that he saw photos of the dead chicken. That's how he testified as to having known. Whether you believe that or not, that's up to you, but that's how the testimony was bringing it in.
And what did you do after you got the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
I got out of there. I left. I went back to the house.
Well, look, before we do that, we've seen the dog kennel video with Cash and Mr. Davis, and we slowed it down for him. Do you see the water hose in that video on the ground? You remember seeing that?
Yes, I do.
Was the water hose out?
Obviously, in the video, but
Look at Jim Griffin. So we're going to, he says this a lot, and I'm cutting it off because I want you to look at Jim Griffin's reaction when he says, obviously. Yes, the third thing. Thank you very much, Charlene. The third thing was I can't trust SLED. Watch. He says, obviously.
Yes, I do.
Was the water hose out?
Obviously, in the video, but
sorry, Jim. I've been there. You just the use of the word obviously. He does it a lot. It's obviously not obvious. That's the conclusion I have. It is obviously not obvious because you're on trial for murder. Every time you use the term obviously, there is going to be someone that is listening to you talking. It's going to say it's not obvious to me. And it might just be a turn of phrase, and it might just be something that you're just inclined to do. I know people that say obviously, or that overuse, and I'm sorry for attacking people in the chat on this one, overuse the word perfect. How was your day? Perfect. It was perfect. Or it's obvious. It might be a turn of phrase, but this is why I go back to why it's so dangerous to put him on the stand. These are really natural things for people to say. Yes, exactly, Girl by the Beach. Obviously is the new literally. Yes, it is. It's a natural thing for someone to say. However, when you're saying it from the witness stand on trial for murder, nothing is obvious. And you can see Jim is just going, come on. Can we just stay on track, please? But yeah, so we're going through the explanation of the video. I want to hit this part of direct, and then we'll get to the cross. So then we'll get to there.
I don't specifically remember that, but I can look in that video and see it.
Right.
But that's not something that I noticed.
So, but you've seen it in the video here.
Yes, sir.
And then the two dogs were out.
Absolutely. Bubba and Grady.
And then you head back. How did you get back to the house?
The same route. I mean, the same route I'd come on. I came down the driveway, made a left on, you saw my route in the car. I drove that same route.
My question wasn't clear enough. What were you in a vehicle? You walked? What mode of transportation did you use to get back to the house?
Same way I came. I went back in the golf cart. And it was the golf cart. If you remember that Mark Ball testified that he saw.
Bear with me. I think I missed the part I wanted to highlight. Same way I came.
And Grady.
And then you head back. How did you get back to the house? Then the two dogs were out.
Absolutely. Bubba and Grady.
And then you head back. How did you get back to the house?
The same route. I mean, the same route I'd come on. I came down the driveway, made a left on, you saw my route in the car. I drove that same route.
My question was obviously wasn't clear enough. What were you in a
Shouldn't be
vehicle?
there,
You
obviously,
walked? What mode of transportation did you use to get back to the house?
Same way I came. I went back in the golf cart. And it is the golf cart, if you remember, that Mark Ball testified that he saw where we normally would park it. You pull along the front entrance, and either you come in from the left and you go just past it and be on the right, or you come in from the right and you'd be just past it on the left. And that's where I got in it, and that's where I put it back.
Did you do anything else
Didn't ask the question, but thank you.
before leaving after you took the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
No.
We've heard about Bubba being stubborn. How long did it take you to get chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
Well, Bubba could be stubborn, but Bubba would listen to me. And another thing, when Bubba had on that collar, one of the other features of that collar was
What did Bubba have on the collar, or was it Grady?
Bubba had on the collar.
Bubba had the collar.
I know Bubba had a collar on, and I'm not sure about Grady.
Okay, go ahead.
If I misspoke on that, there's no question about it. Bubba had on a collar. I assume Grady did too. But I didn't, even though I saw Grady, I didn't notice for a fact that Grady had on a collar.
Okay.
But he probably did.
So
Makes sense to me that he did.
how long did it take to get?
This part, he does this a lot during his direct. And when we get to one of the weirder parts of this direct examination, I want you to remember this part of the testimony right here, where he sees a conclusion that's a factual conclusion, and he sees the absence of how to get to that conclusion. He fills the gap with something because he feels that there needs to be an explanation given for something he just said or for a fact that was observed. And it's that filling the void with something that you either don't know that scares most attorneys, because it can come across as, I didn't know this, therefore I filled the gap with something that was innocent that I think is the logical conclusion, or it's, I'm lying. Those are your two options. He's either lying or filling the gap with something that he's logically reaching for the conclusion. The problem is figuring out between the two isn't easy, and you don't really want to leave that to a jury. So he does this a lot, and he prefaces it with, if I misspoke, then I apologize, but I'm pretty sure that it would be logical that happened. He does it a lot, and I highlighted it here because if you guys go back and watch testimony, or when you see it tomorrow, I want you to watch these different things.
Get the chicken out of Bubba's mouth.
It didn't take long. Number one, Bubba's coming back there to show me, hey, I caught this chicken. So he's not running from me. He's proud of that fact that he caught this chicken. So
everyone dogs, this is true.
He comes right up to me.
This is dog.
Bubba was really strong, but you take your thumb when the dog's clenched and his mouth's a little bit open. All you do is you take your thumb and you push his gum in really tight against those sharp teeth, and his mouth opens right up. Took the chicken out and put it on, I believe, the portable dog kennel.
And then left.
And then I left.
Then leave. Okay. And did you go back to the house?
I went straight back to the house, to the air conditioner.
And what did you do when you got back to the house?
I lay down on the couch.
And then what? Well, was TV on when you went back?
Yeah, the TV never got cut off.
So you went back to the house, you lay down on the couch, and then what happened next?
I'm not positive I dozed off for a minute or didn't doze off for a minute, but I got up off of the couch and I made up my mind I was going to visit my mom.
Had you spoken to Barbara Mixon earlier in the day?
I did. I
And,
talk to Barbara most days. If I didn't see her, I talked to her.
and what was your understanding of your mother's condition late on the afternoon of the 7th?
Hang on, got to get back to
Called
this
what?
part here.
I called my mom's.
Almeida, you spent
This part I'm less concerned with. The part that I was
One of the first things she asked me,
it's this.
no,
One of the first things she asked.
yeah, dogs were in the kennels. They were wherever they were when law enforcement got there.
and you've seen pictures, and they called Dale Davis to the stand and talk about the hose rolled up.
Dang it, I lost my timestamp. Sorry, guys.
One of the first things she asked me,
You say the word here.
There we go.
Okay, do you see anything? Do you see anyone in the area?
no, ma'am. No, ma'am. No,
Is there any guns near them at all?
no. They're here.
What color is your house on the outside?
If that's what you're asking, they didn't shoot themselves, ma'am.
What?
Alex, right in there, you say the word here. What, are you calling anybody or anything?
No, I'm talking to that dispatcher.
And what did you mean when you said here?
If you listen to that call, one of the first things she asked me, one of the first things she asked me was, did they shoot themselves? And I knew there's no way. I mean, I knew they didn't shoot themselves. It wasn't a gun. They didn't shoot themselves. And she'd asked me that.
Did you all hear that in that call? I don't remember it. And I don't know that I don't remember hearing it, and I don't remember hearing it just then. If I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong, but I don't remember hearing the question about did they shoot themselves. So that was a question that I had. And I don't know that he answered that very well. And honestly, when he goes to they didn't shoot themselves, if that's what you're asking or something like that, I don't know. These are questions that I have. And they, unfortunately, are, I think, in that category of questions I don't know I'm ever going to get answers to. Yes, she did ask. Okay, she did ask. Good. They did ask. I'm wrong. Good. I told you. I'm glad to be wrong. I'm very glad to be wrong. I'm glad. I hope they hit that on close, because I think they need to clarify that on close. So, yeah. So, good. I hope they need to clarify that one on close. So, let's see. I want to see if I can get to the specific point. I don't want to lose where I had my other timestamp, though. Oh, because these days are so long. I want to make sure I'm getting to the point where we're talking about the relevant information here. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second here. Okay, 4129. 4129. There we go.
Yeah, dogs were in the kennels. They were wherever they were when law enforcement got there.
And you've seen pictures, and they called Dale Davis to the stand and talk about the hose rolled up. Did you roll the hose up?
No.
Did you do anything down there at the kennels when you got there other than call 911 and attend to Maggie and Paul?
No, I do know that I was trying to find a flashlight. I was trying to find a gun. Other than those things, no, I didn't do anything at the kennel. I didn't do anything with any hose. I didn't do anything with any dogs.
Was there anybody with you?
No.
All right, keep going, please.
It's white. You can't see it from the road. Okay, is it a house or a mobile home? It's a house. Okay, and what is your name?
Just one remark, and I apologize to everyone's ears in this particular moment because this was a day. You want the volume up so you can hear the testimony, but why is it that we can have crystal clear communication via cell phone, FaceTime, whether it's anything, but every single 911 call sounds like I'm at a drive-through of a restaurant that has not been updated since like the 1960s. Like, why? Why? It would be so lovely to hear these communications.
My name is Alex Murdaugh. Okay, did you hear anything, or did you come home and find out? I've been gone. I just came back. Okay, and was anyone else supposed to be at your house? No, ma'am. Please hurry. We're getting somebody out there to you.
Happy birthday, Lynn Morley.
Should have known.
Alec, we just heard you say, I should have known. What are you referring to?
I said, Paul, I should have known.
What were you referring to?
I was referring to Paul got so many threats. Didn't take serious. Think twice about. I'm just telling him, Paul, I should have known. I won't specifically remember saying that, but can clearly hear myself say that.
Thank you, neurodivergent counselor.
What kind of threats did you understand Paul was receiving?
I mean, Paul got the most vile threats. I mean, the stuff that was on social media. I mean, it was. I mean, you couldn't believe it. You couldn't believe it. It was so over the top. Truthfully, we didn't think anything about it. I mean, it was just so crazy that, we just. I mean, people talking about what he was going to get and how they were going to do this and get him. And I mean, it's stuff you really, I mean, we disregarded it because it's so over the top. Thought it's so over the top.
Keep going, please, Doug.
Okay, what is her name? Maggie. Maggie is home. Maggie is her name? Yes, ma'am. Okay. When's the last time you talked to Maggie? Hour and a half ago, probably 2 hours ago. What? Okay, you said about 2 hours ago you talked to them? Approximately, yes, ma'am, approximately.
Well, you were asked the last time you saw them, and you said hour and a half, 2 hours ago, and then she followed up 2 hours ago. You just heard that?
I did hear that. And I said approximately to her question.
When was the last time you saw them, Maggie and Paul?
Right after I took the chicken from Bubba.
Here we go.
And the video we've seen is timestamp 8:44 p.m. Is that correct?
That's right.
So was it shortly after 8:44?
It was.
And
It wasn't long after that, because you can hear when Bubba gets the chicken, and it wasn't long after I took the chicken from him that I left.
and then you called 911, the records of that, but do you remember roughly 9:07 or right before 9:07?
I mean, I've seen the records and seen the transcripts, yeah.
And then this is, and the records of this, but this is some minutes into the conversation with 911 operators, correct?
That's right. Like,
Knowing everything we know now, I mean, was it roughly an hour and a half the last time you saw him?
it was. That would, with the time of however long it took to get to this point, however many minutes that is 10, however many, you can look exactly and see what point this is and know what time it is, but it's between 10 and 10:15. And so I'd seen them around.
This is a question I have for you guys. And it was a note that I made basically when he makes a comment. I left right after I retrieved the chicken. Then he starts going through a lot of the time comments. A lot of this is recreated in his mind based on having reviewed records. You hear him say essentially, well, I know that now, or looking at the records, I know that now. I didn't like that answer. I probably would have had him testify honestly. And if it was honest, 100% honest in this regard, it would have been, I didn't remember at the moment. I don't know how long it was. I knew it was shortly thereafter. I knew it was immediate. I didn't remember exactly when the phone call was. The reconstructing your own memory from records, it frustrates me. And it's one of those things that I wonder if the jury reaches the same conclusion. I don't know if they will or won't, because the records have been flaunted out in front of them forever. I don't know. But I will say that, like, when he refers to the records, or I know that now, I know this now, I know this now, honestly, if he would have just said, and I'm not disparaging him for saying this, if he would have simply said, I don't remember exactly when, but when I looked at the records, it looks like I did this. That right there, that's how I would have told him he should have answered that question. And I would have completely believed that that's true. And it's not that what he's saying is a lie, or it's not, I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying that it could be perceived as a lie. And it's the perception that you're trying to steer away from here. I just, that part drove me a little bit wild, because the other thing is, how are we supposed to trust your perception of time when your timing is all over the place? Like I said, I still have questions.
8:45, a little bit after.
All right, please keep going.
And what they were doing at all?
No, I talked to her in person.
You talked to her in person?
And please hurry.
But we're getting somebody out there too. Me asking you these questions, don't slow them down, okay? And you sure they're not breathing? Is he moving at all, your son? I know you said that she was shot in the head, but what about your son?
Nobody. They're not. Neither one of them moving.
What is your telephone number?
942-1227.
Not active
I'm
anymore.
going back to my house just to get a gun just in case. I'm about
Did you go back to the house and get a gun?
I did.
And is this the gun that you got? And how did you load this gun? What did you load it with, if anything?
That was gun, as best I can remember. I believe I got that gun off the pool table where you heard there was some other gun. I think that gun was laying with that pool table. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure it was on that pool table. would have been the first place I came to. I know I was grabbing the first gun I could get. I grabbed a handful of shells out of the that I could get my hands on. I know the gun had a shell in it that I loaded, and I know I had a few shells. So
If you don't remember, you don't remember. Don't fill the gaps. Everything that he says, that he actually says with conviction, you can hear it. The gun had a shell in it. I grabbed a few with my hands. It was the first one I saw. All of those things completely believable. But when he starts filling the gaps, if you don't know, you don't know, stop filling the gaps. And he does this all the time. He does it all the time. And it makes it very difficult. Very difficult. And it frustrates me to no end because there are factual issues in this case that I very much, if I'm a juror, need to know answers to. Where if I'm asked to convict someone beyond a reasonable doubt at this point in time, based on the facts in front of me, I don't think I can get there still. I still don't think I can get there. Now, I'm an attorney. I'm not a person that I'm looking at this really hyper analytically. I really am. But there are factual things, even with all of his lies, there are factual questions that I have that I can't get there yet. And his lies make it more difficult for me to either acquit him or convict him. It's driving me wild. I don't understand the inconsistencies. So the last part, and then I'm going to get across because I can't find this timestamp that I lost because of course I lost it. Frustration. The last part that I want to talk about or mention that I thought was really significant, and I wish I had that timestamp queued up. I don't. And I'm frustrated myself for not having it because I did have it written down at some point, but not anymore. It's disappeared. The part I want to talk about was the whole belt loop thing. So when he gets down to talking about touching Paul, he says that he went there and tried to turn him over by his belt loop. Said that he reached down and tried to grab him by the belt loop. And this again goes to what I was saying earlier. My impression is I am led to the conclusion, or I am led to the understanding that there's a possibility that he never touched Paul, that he touched only the phone. But because he told emergency responders that he touched him, he had to come up with this to fill in the gap. How would he have touched Paul to explain how the phone was there? Well, I've got an alternate explanation that would make perfect sense if he had just kind of realized, or I'm not going to speculate this. Let's say hypothetically that he never touched Paul and that there was a lie on the 911 call. I can see a reason why that lie would be made by a parent that wanted to be perceived as or was panicked in that moment, that if they didn't go and check the pulse, I can see why someone might be inclined to lie in that regard. Here's the thing. Is there an explanation that an attorney could have made that Paul, after being shot in the chest before taking the fatal shot, had reached for his phone to possibly call 911? The phone was therefore in Paul's hand. And that when Paul took that fatal shot, the phone stumbled or tumbled in front of him or beneath him or to the side. And that Alex, upon seeing his son and seeing the phone that had scattered, went over, saw that his son was beyond any help, and for some reason, no explanation needed, picks up the phone and sets it down on Paul after he realizes he picked up the phone. That would explain no blood. That would explain no touching. That would explain the phone. That's an argument that could be made. And I think that it's a reasonable argument that you could infer from the facts that are given. But this whole sticking to the idea that he touched him, I believe is less credible than that. Anyone else make sense? Does that make sense to anybody else, or am I just on an island here? Because, and here's the thing, he didn't touch them. He would have been stepped in blood and all blood all over the place. Yeah. I'm kind of inclined to agree. The not touching him. But I can also see a scenario where the phone is out lying around. And I can see a scenario where someone's answering calls. I can see a scenario where all this is happening in a panicked moment. I just wish there was knowledge. I wish there was just like, just make all of these things. Quit your bitch. I love the name, by the way. Thank you for the super chat. Never intentionally. It was interesting. The never intentionally. I got that point. I don't know the state has gotten me to the beyond a reasonable doubt. And here's why. So let's do this. We're going to fast forward the cross-examination of Mr. Colleton Waters. Colleton Waters has been waiting for months to do this. And here I was, and I had shortchanged Mr. Waters in his approach, and I thought that he was going to come in there fists a swinging. And he does. But he has changed a lot of his delivery. And I thought this bit, a lot of this was kind of impressive as far as the delivery and the change in tone and cadence and all of the above. And for those of you guys that are seeing this, I am trying to pull up super chats as we go along. If I see a question, I'm going to try and answer it as it is. I have to be on a plane tomorrow at 8:34 a.m. Where I'm traveling down to go visit our favorite Canadian. And actually, hey, good point. So Ian Runkle, thank you, LK Ryden, very much appreciated. Watching body language. I'm going to see if I can talk to Spidey or Chase about this. I'm just curious. I'm curious. I'm not going to judge one or the other because I think measuring him is difficult. It's odd. Even the behavior panel, when they did it, they were like, this is wild. Like a lot of these things are wild. So I want to talk to them first. But what I will say, yes, they're watching my streams. Yes. So I'm supposed to meet Ian Runkle down for the Gundy Awards in Texas. So I'm going to see our favorite little Canadian law tuber. And I had to pick out a tie. And this tie, focus, this tie was sent to me, but it didn't have anyone addressed having sent it. If you sent this to me, please let me know. This might be my new very favorite tie. Is this a wooden tie? Yes, it's a wooden tie. Am I going to wear this tomorrow? Rather on Saturday? Very likely yes. Is this now the coolest tie I own? I don't know. It's close. But it's a wooden tie. It's so cool. So yeah, I wanted to share that because I was very happy that someone had sent that. And yeah. And then for those of you asking if Friday Night Frenzy is going to be canceled or postponed, as of right now, Ian is testing the Wi-Fi. And if the Wi-Fi is strong, then so will Friday Night Frenzy will proceed from Texas. So if you guys are enjoying any of these recaps or Friday Night Frenzy, please tune in. So let's get back. Ian better not steal this one. No, Ian better not steal this one. We're gonna have words if he does. Big problems. Okay, so now we get into the cross-examination of Mr. Colleton Waters, and I want you to focus on, because if you guys have watched any of this trial, Mr. Waters has been all over the place, and he's been very, very eager out of the gate to just hammer home all these different points, been super quick in his questions. He's been super aggressive in his questioning, and he changes his tone here. He's still direct and assertive, but a lot of the aggressive nature is kind of out of him. And I honestly didn't know that he was capable of this, and I was kind of impressed with the acknowledgement. Now, granted, he's probably practiced this thing forever, but let's watch a little bit of it. Bring the joke. Come on, Mr. Waters, get up. Oh, this was after lunch. It took forever. Jury's present. Here we go.
Mr. Murdaugh, let's start with a few things I think we can agree on.
All right, sir.
You agree that the most important part of your testimony here today is explaining your lie for a year and a half that you were never down at those kennels at 8:44. Would you agree with that?
Oh, it might be.
I think all of my testimony is important, Mr. Waters.
Would you agree that that's an important part of your testimony?
Sure.
All right. And would you also agree that the first time that law enforcement officers that you've talked to and the prosecution and here in open court ever heard you say that you lied about being in the kennels was today in this court?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Fair and unfair at the same time. It was a good question. It had to be asked. And I think this was skirting the line. I don't know if it was skirting a line. I think it's fair game. Generally speaking, you're not allowed to question a witness and invoke, or rather imply that their use of their right to remain silent suggests any impropriety on their part. Now, the difference here is that Mr. Murdaugh did give prior statements. He gave 3 interviews where he lied and maintained that lie, at least 3 interviews. So I think that Creighton was right to ask this, and I think that it was right for the defense not to object. But notice the change in tone. It wasn't super aggressive. He was firm. He did pretty well. I have been critical of Creighton Waters, and I will be critical of him going into this cross a little bit further, because it does end up that he goes, once he starts sniffing the financial crimes, he can't stop, and he can't stop with some of the theater. But I thought this was a good start. And let's see how long it really lasts.
You would agree with that?
Yes, sir.
All right. All this time later, this is the first time you've ever said that.
Yes, sir.
Then you would agree with me that for years you were stealing money from clients,
Yes, sir. I agree with that.
and that you were stealing from your law firm,
Yes, sir. I agree with that.
and that had been going on since at least 2010.
I'm not sure the exact date, but it's been going on a long time. I'll agree with
All right,
that.
what's your best guess of the date?
I'm not sure. I
You don't know?
I don't take a dispute with 2010. I just don't know that for sure.
All right, sure about a lot of things, but you don't know that. Is that correct?
I'm fine with that date, Mr. Waters. I don't have any reason to dispute it. I'm just not certain of it.
All right. Let's just keep on things that we may be able to agree about. And let's talk first about,
Well, that took a totality of 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Yes, I see there's deflection, but Creighton Waters does what he needs to do. Thank you, Stephanie. Expected to hear addiction may be used to come with quick excuses. Thought they would suspect me and overcorrected. Interesting, but the drugs have been on for 20 years, maybe. Paranoid seems odd. Yeah, the paranoia part really did confuse me. And I think Creighton's going to come back and hammer that on cross. But thank you for that super chat. So here's the thing. Creighton Waters begins pretty well. Kind of goes with the lie that was told about the Snapchat video, that he needed to get that one out there. And this was most definitely scripted. 1 second here. He needs to get the lie, and then the next thing he has to do is equate the lie to other lies. He has to basically say, and now this goes back to what the judge kind of said. This can come in for motive, right? It can come in for all these things, but realistically, we know what it is: propensity evidence. It is that you did this, therefore you have the propensity to do this in the future. So he's equating the lie that was made several years ago and the continuous lies that he made to the lie that he told about being at the Snapchat kennels. Good start. Then, though, he starts to get immediately theatrical with some of the financial lies, and he wants to bring those home. And he gets really nitpicky, and then he starts to get a little bit condescending. Now, he's allowed to be condescending with the defendant. It's expected of him. But it got kind of ticky tacky, and it got kind of, I'm going to use the word petty. I don't know that that's the appropriate word, but there was a lot of sparring over words that didn't need to be sparred over. There were fights that he should have fought, and there were fights that he appropriately fought. But there were fights that just felt like they didn't need to be fought, like this one right here, where he says, well, let's just stick with the things that we can agree on for right now. Those are remarks that attorneys make to kind of, quote, put the witness in their place. They don't generally come across well to a judge or a jury. I liked how he started. I liked how he kind of continued. But the second he starts going into the finances, you can tell where he wants to go. He really, really, really wants to convince the jury that because of all of these lies that we're told, that everything that he said is a lie. And you're allowed to draw that conclusion. However, I will just make one caveat. I have known a lot of people who have lied about a lot of things, but there are certain things they would not lie about. I don't know whether that's Mr. Murdaugh, but it's also something that weighs in my mind whenever I hear someone go down this road of you lie about A, B, C, D, E, therefore you're lying about F. If one of those jurors, just one juror, believes that Mr. Murdaugh could have lied about every single financial transaction, and I'm not saying I do or anybody else in the chat does, if one of those jurors could reach the conclusion that he could lie about every single transaction, but his admitting to the different financial crimes was his acknowledgement that he has lied, but he would never dare lie about this one thing. I don't know. So the more that Creighton Waters starts hammering this point, is he then alienating that juror? I don't know. These are questions. And I think they're good questions. I'm very curious about this. So let's see, because he continues going, and then I'll get forward into some of towards the end of the day cross, where you can kind of see where he goes a little bit off the rails.
Your family's legacy here in the legal profession, okay?
Talk about anything you want to.
Good. Tell me about your great-grandfather. Was he the solicitor for the very circuit that we're in?
Yes, sir.
And what was his name?
Randolph Murdaugh Sr.
All right. What did he go by? Do you know?
Randolph.
Randolph? And did you ever get to know him, or did he pass before?
Oh, no, sir. He got killed in 1940.
And how long was he solicitor?
20 years.
20 years?
Yes, sir.
And then your grandfather, who was that?
Randolph Murdaugh Jr.
All right. And did he go by, what did he go by?
Buster. That's who Buster is named after.
And was he solicitor?
Yes, sir. He was the solicitor for 46 years. From 1940, he took over when my great-granddaddy got killed, and he served until 1986. He was the longest-serving prosecutor in the country.
And you knew him obviously well. He was your grandfather, correct?
Oh, I knew him extremely well and loved him dearly.
Idolized him, did you not?
Yes. You know. I
So he
loved
was the
him
chief
dearly.
prosecutor for all that time as well. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then your father, Mr. Randolph, he became solicitor not long after that. Is that correct?
When my grandfather retired, because you weren't allowed to be solicitor after age 72, my dad took over, filled his unexpired term, and then he ran.
And he became the chief prosecutor for this area right here as well?
Yes, sir.
And how long was he solicitor?
From 1986 until 2006.
Till 2006?
Yes, sir.
I actually worked a case with him about a guy who killed a trooper.
All right. Don't need to make those remarks, but before we get to those remarks, observe the change in cadence. This is not the Creighton Waters you have seen this whole trial, at least this part of him. His demeanor is calm. His inflection is appropriate. His cadence is measured. He is taking breaths between his questions. He's not hammering questions home. This is an adjustment that threw me for a loop because it's not what we've seen this whole trial. Now, he goes down this road of a lot of power and influence, and we don't have time to go through all of it. So he goes down this road of a lot of power and influence here. Hey, Emily, glad to see you here. Hope you got some rest. What a day. Yeah, I was talking about Creighton. Yeah, he changes his cadence and tone. He controls the witness in this way, and he does this thing that he hasn't been able to do the whole trial. Alex Murdaugh is the type of witness that is one of the most frustrating for any attorney to represent. It's the type of witness that cannot live with empty space. They cannot live with voids in conversation. If you leave a question hanging or a remark hanging for long enough, they will fill it with words. May not be responsive to the question that you're asking, but you're not really looking for the answer to the question you're asking. You're looking for them to say something that you can double back on them for. Let me give you an example of some of the things that he said in his examination that I would have come back on. One, I should have known. We heard that one. Two, in response to what he did when he got the kitchen, when he finished wrangling the chicken out and got Bub in the kennel, I got out of there rather emphatically. So he got out of there. Then you've got the remark about the intentional remark. And you've got a lot of other different choice of words, obviously, stuff like this. When you have a witness like Mr. Murdaugh who wants to they want to explain their story. They want to do it more than anything. Timing in the questions is freaking critical. And the patience that it requires for an attorney who's been prepping this cross for months to sit back there and ask the questions slowly and methodically and look like they're maintaining patience. Now, the patience wears off later. We expect it to. But to begin this way and to set the tone and the pace was remarkably effective. And it's something I have not seen from Creighton this entire trial. So I'm going to give credit where it's due. Now, I think he went off the rails with the finances and just focused just right in on that. But as far as how he began the cross, I thought it was good. And honestly, it demonstrated a lot of litigation tactics that I didn't know that he had. I don't mean that disparaging, but there was a lot of things that I was going, is this really Creighton Waters? Is this the same person we've seen? It was really fascinating. And then the other point that I thought was interesting here, good point. Tracy, amazing how much he remembers things that benefit him and conveniently forgets other things when he knows where the questions are going. Huh. That's true. Now, there's two caveats. One, a lot of the questions that were asked are being asked on cross-examination, and your guard is immediately up. You're trying to, especially an attorney, trying to anticipate where the question is going. So your guard's up, so you're a little more hesitant to give information. Two, there's a big gap in time between the questions Creighton Waters asking, 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and the questions that are more pertinent to the murder trial, which is 2021. So that gap in time, I don't really disparage Mr. Murdaugh for not remembering all the details. Now, I will say he played a little bit evasive towards the end. I'm going to give you guys kind of a synopsis of some of the law enforcement stuff. Speeding through this, basically, Mr. Murdaugh had a lovely badge. The badge was given to him because he's a volunteer solicitor. This little badge was a shiny piece of metal that gave the impression or the imprimatur of power and authority. Did it have real authority with it? Nominal, not really. But he loved the gleam of that badge, so much so that he put it in the front of his dashboard. So much so that when he was walking around, he would take it out of the front of his dashboard and sling it over his pocket. Not just in his pocket, but leaving one side of it out of the pocket. You'll see this with young attorneys. Sometimes we have badges that enter the courtroom and they have their badge slung around their neck. And they wear it that way the whole day. It's like, look at me, shiny. And it's not a remark that I use a disparaging remark in context of them, but it's just an observation. This person loved power to the point where the SUV, the Suburban that he was driving that night, it had flashers. It had lights. It had blue and red lights set up like a cop car, like an emergency response vehicle. Emily, don't talk. You know what? All's fair. All's fair. I do this to your chat too. He whipped that shit out everywhere. He did. He would approach the scene. He would approach a discussion. He would approach anything. He had that badge, and that was something that he loved drawing attention to all the time, to the point where when the boat incident occurs, and Creighton Waters does great in cross-examination on this one, and I'm going to encourage you guys to go back and review it. When the boat incident occurs, he shows up on scene. The badge is in front of his car. He's allowed on site while they're looking for the body. Then he goes to the hospital, and Creighton Waters asks it. Well, here's another thing. Every question asked of you, you anticipate that attorney knows the answer to it before you answer it, and just don't evade the question. Don't evade the question. Answer it honestly. Let your lawyer explain on redirect. Because what Murdaugh does in this particular question was ludicrous. Creighton Waters asks him if he has ever worn that badge outside of his pocket, essentially indicating the power that came with that office. And he says, I don't believe I ever did, or I don't remember ever doing so. And he says, you never? Well, that's red flag number 2. You should know where this is going. Yep. Creighton Waters then pulls out a photograph. Wasn't that you with the badge sitting outside your pocket? And he says, well, I don't know that I would have put it in there. You know damn well. And any juror, any person in the courtroom knows damn well why that badge is sitting outside your pocket. Just own it. You have owned every other thing. Own all of it. If you don't own all of it, then the jury's not going to believe all the truth. They're not going to believe the credibility you gained by owning the faults that you had. So own it. Admit it. They get into some pissing match over language and choice of words, whether he actually remembers or whether he's being given the information. It just, a lot of it goes sideways. And the problem that you kind of run into, revisiting the badge thing. During the boat case, Creighton Waters is asking whether he ever used the badge to access places he couldn't access. And he says, no, never. Dun, dun, dun. Don't ever tell an attorney never. Don't ever tell an attorney never or always. Ever. Don't do it. Because they're really damn good at finding that one time. So, yes, he used that badge to gain access to the different people that were in the hospital after the boat case while he was kind of trying to figure out what they would say or might say about his child. And it was really pretty nasty to see. You hated it. Like you really didn't, just watching it just made your skin kind of crawl. And I'll see if I can find at least some of that testimony. Give me 1 second. Again, I had to play a lot of catch up because I had meetings this afternoon. So I'm trying to sort through timestamps. I was really bad at locating and got very frustrated with towards the end of the day. Those are the cases we're talking about. Here we go. 80102. Here we go. So pull this up, take a look, see what we've got.
That's okay. I mean, I know what it is. I looked at it when you handed it to me. So the card on the bottom is what I got from Duffy Stone. The one on the top, and the one on the top should give you a better. There we go. All right. So the one on the top was what came from my dad when he was solicitor. The one on the bottom is what came from Duffy Stone when he was solicitor. And Duffy Stone took over after my dad retired in 2006. Duffy Stone filled my dad's unexpired, the rest of his unexpired 4-year term, much like my dad filled my granddad. So, and then Duffy became the solicitor.
Did you ever have lights in your vehicle?
In the particular.
By the way, another remark. Like I said, cross-examination, every attorney loves cross. It's our favorite thing in the world. It really is, as far as trial attorneys go. Look at Creighton right now. He is loving life. I mean, he's not, because he's in a murder trial, but he's loving life. He is happy that he has now realized after an hour and a half of cross-examination that he can ask a question and this witness is going to go left, right, center, sideways, do anything except stay on point. And he's just sitting there and enjoying every minute of it because he just got Mr. Murdaugh to testify to a lot of family relationships and power that exists in this county that he did not have to ask a question for. It just came right out of his mouth, which makes it seem not forced, but more earnest. And some of those jurors might not really appreciate some of these remarks. So people will find that condescending. I will say that this pose does not bother me at all. I think this is an attorney that's in their element in cross-examination. And it's not that I'm all here for it. I'm just saying that while I disagree with Creighton's strategy, I think his tactics today were a vast improvement from the rest of the trial.
Particular vehicle?
No, in any vehicle.
Yes, sir, I did.
Was that a government vehicle?
No, sir, it was not.
When did you have lights, like blue lights and stuff?
Yes, sir, I had some blue lights.
When did you have blue lights? And let me remember, you did 5 cases over 20 years, and you had blue lights in your vehicle, but it was your private vehicle, correct?
Well, it was the vehicle that I drove. It was a law firm owned vehicle.
The law firm's own vehicle. So how'd you get blue lights in there?
I had them installed.
And who installed them?
I believe that Eddie Gibson installed them.
And who was that?
He's the guy who apparently does blue light work for most of the sheriff's departments in the 14th Circuit and a lot of the police departments.
And when did
All right. That's essentially all we have to hear out of that. Mr. Murdaugh is so powerful that he got the person who installed the light setup on all of the cop cars in the area to volunteer his time to install lights on a private citizen's vehicle. That's how powerful this family is. Wow. Wow. Yeah. So the other thing that I want to bring us back to, because I might be making these little observations here and there, and this is, again, me and my emotions getting enthralled in some of the information we're getting. But what does any of this have to do with what took place between the hour of 8:44 p.m. and 10 o'clock p.m. when Alex Murdaugh comes back on property? What does any of this have to do with it? What weight are you going to give it in reviewing that timeline? Bad person, bad. Really bad. Really bad. Really gross. Really bad power, use power, all these things. Just horrible, horrible, horrible things. But you have to get me to the murders. And I think that Creighton's going to get there. The problem is, I wonder if he's going to lose any jurors along the way. Is it character assassination? Yup. It is. It absolutely is. And the funny thing about this one, I think is very curious. Creighton Waters and this in trial in general, how many witnesses, how many hours of court time were consumed talking about financials and financial impropriety versus actual time consumed by witnesses talking through the timeline and the evidence that actually proves that a trigger was pulled by Mr. Murdaugh on that scene? I'm going to be very curious, and I'm sure that there's someone that's going to do that math, and I want to see it. because right now in my head, I've got about 70-30, 70 being financial argument and debate and evidence, 30% being actual crime. And where you have an issue with this one is they made that initial objection on the 403, 404, and they've reasserted that objection consistently throughout. While appeals are generally speaking for losers, you lose the case, therefore the likelihood of success on appeal is slim. That likelihood of success improves with every additional minute you take consuming and arguing that finances are the issue here. Because finances as a motive, they lost me. They lost me with finances as a motive a while back. So I'm sure that there are some people saying that finances are still a motive, and that is a fair assessment. Honestly, with all of the information that has been thrown your way for the past 5 weeks, I'm not going to judge anybody for making a conclusion one way or the other, guilty or innocent. Honestly, there are so many questions in this case. I'm not going to judge one or the other. I just haven't gotten there yet. I've watched the evidence come in. I've watched all of the testimony. I've looked at the exhibits. I've gotten all there. And just if I am a juror in that box, I'm just telling you what my opinion is right now. And it's you lost me on the financial motive part. I am more curious. I don't really care about motive, to be honest. And actually, if you ask most attorneys, they won't. Most attorneys won't. Motive is great to help prove something occurred, but when the absence of motive doesn't actually do anything. Motive is not a necessary element to a murder. So most attorneys will just kick it down the road. But for a lot of people, motive means a lot. So I don't really know. Like I said, I'm a coin toss. So he continues going on, asking about the financial stuff. And then we start to get into some of the back and forth. And we're going to do this for about 5 more minutes. I'm going to get to the last comment. Let me see here. 5 more minutes and we get to the last, and then I'm going to get to the last comments and remarks made at the end of the day. Emily, thank you. But how much time saved on all the other charges that will now never go to trial? I like when you're being sarcastic or just facetious. I don't know. You're right. He admitted to every crime, everything. He literally said, okay, cool. I admit the petition. Yep. State saves a lot of money. They save a ton of money on a financial crime because those experts are really expensive. Forensic experts, very expensive. So, yeah. And the other thing about this one is now when you're the defense, here's the other argument that you get to make, or you might get to make, depending on the jurisdiction. I don't know if South Carolina allows this, and someone can correct me if they don't. One of the interesting things about this one is some jurisdictions will allow you to make the argument that this person is already facing life in prison, period. Some will allow you to make that argument, or that they're already being charged with these other crimes, and therefore you don't have to worry, suggest that you don't have to worry about convicting him for this one. Ergo, if the evidence doesn't get you over the finish line, you don't have to fill the gap and get over the finish line and convict him because we've got him over here on these other charges. If South Carolina allows that argument, you better damn well believe that that is going to be flaunted in front of the jury without end in closing. It is going to be just, you don't need to worry because not only is he going away forever, and I mean forever, for the rest of his life on these financial crimes, but he admitted every illegality that he is charged with financially on the stand today. That testimony is under oath, can be used against him in all future proceedings. The state has a Loctite, absolute conviction on all those financial crimes. So I don't know. Was putting him on the stand a bad idea? I think so. You know what? I'm going to take that back. I take that back. Was putting him on the stand a bad idea? Based on my understanding of where we are today, if I'm the attorney with this case, it's a gamble I'm not willing to take. And it's a gamble I'm telling my client and begging my client not to take. But do some gambles pay off? Yeah. Are there attorneys that roll the dice? Abso-freaking-lutely. So let's go into some of this this back and forth on some of the financials, because you'll start to see where we get to some of the disagreement between these two and where they start to go a little tit for tat here. That's the boat ride. Here we go. Access. I want to get to the finances. Yeah, there we go.
I can tell you that I didn't do right by Natasha Thomas. I took money from Natasha Thomas that didn't belong to me, and I was wrong for doing that.
Okay.
And I admit that.
And I know, Mr. Murdaugh, that you would like for it just to be as simple as that, just to say, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I stole money, and have that be the end of it. But in every single one of these cases,
To the comment, Your Honor.
you just testified that you would like to just admit that. And make this quick, correct? Isn't that what?
The steamrolling over the objection. The judge didn't even get the words out of his mouth. Just steamrolling over the objection. It wasn't really a good objection in that moment. But Creighton has a point here. Alex Murdaugh doesn't get to get up there and say, I did this. I admit everything you say I did. You can move on now. No. The prosecution has the absolute right to, when they are bringing this evidence on. The person who made the comment in the chat earlier said character assassination. Based on the rules of evidence and the prior rulings of this court deeming this stuff relevant for purposes of this trial, the prosecution has the right to commit that very assassination with every painstaking cut they wish to make. Whether they should or shouldn't is a judgment call. And I think that Creighton needs to reassess where he's going a little bit here. He got in the weeds today. If he begins tomorrow, he needs to shape it back up. Get the jury back to a finding of guilt on the facts presented to them. Because I'll tell you this, all it takes is one person in that jury box who, when they hear finances, has shut their brain off. And it won't matter who's back there in the deliberation room saying how bad this person is. If it has to do with finances, they're not going to listen. Creighton needs to convince that person. And Alex Murdaugh needs to just answer questions and not go on long monologues. And he needs to actually, when he says, I'm owning these things, or I admit to these things, he needs to actually admit to them, all of them. So we'll watch a little bit more, and then I'm going to fast forward to the end because there was a little bit of commentary that I want to get, and then we're going to get super chats and we get out of here because then I have to leave tomorrow morning for a very, very early flight. Thank you, Robin Silver, for the very generous super sticker.
Isn't that what you said? Isn't that what you implied?
No, sir, Mr. Waters. You have charged me with murdering my wife and my son. And I've sat here for all these weeks listening to all this financial stuff that I did wrong, that I'm embarrassed by. I'm happy to talk to you about as much of that as you want to talk about. I'm required to talk about it as much as you want to talk about it. But the fact is I cannot specifically remember sitting down, the details that you're asking me for. I can't tell you, but what I can tell you is that in all these financial situations,
Texas to visit Ian.
I stole money that was not my money. I misled people that I shouldn't have misled, and I did wrong. I can tell you that. And I may be able to tell you specifically in some instances what I did or didn't do.
All right. Well, good. Well, we'll do that. But the point that I'm asking you is, it's not just as simple as some paperwork. You had to sit down and deal with these people and convince them that you were telling them the truth in order to steal this money, correct?
That may not be true because in some situations, I may not have had to do that.
Creighton gets dramatic. This is one I think sells because he says that may not be true. And it's something that is such a simple question. And I know that Alex is trying to get technical on it, but he hasn't been technical with a lot of the other questions. And oh my gosh, where is this one? I need this chat. I need to pull this up immediately because it's completely right. David, generally speaking, Nightbot's going to hit everything with all caps. I caught this one before Nightbot hit it. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Yes, that is exactly this. That is the definition of is. That depends on what the definition of is. That is this argument. Don't get in the weeds with him. Don't get down in that mud pit. If you're going to admit to everything, admit to everything. What's he going to do? A gotcha on the financial crimes you just admitted to? It's a difficult thing here. Because Creighton turns around and says, that was a simple question. Does and it does it right in front of the jury. Yes, it's theatrical, but that theater kind of works.
They may have just trusted me to do it.
Okay.
So that's my point is I misled them. There's no question about that. But did I sit down in each particular instance and like you're breaking it down step by step? I can't say that.
Right.
I can say I did wrong. I stole money that wasn't mine and I shouldn't have done it.
All right.
And it was terrible what I did.
Oh, 4. 1, 2,
All right,
3,
well, let's
4.
look at stage 330. This is Arthur Badger in the EPS case, correct?
That's correct.
All right. You remember what the total recovery was in that particular case? There were multiple plaintiffs. Let me ask you that first. There were multiple plaintiffs in that case, correct?
That's correct.
And do you remember what the total recovery was in that case?
Not exactly, but I mean, I know generally.
All right. Was it $12 million? Would you disagree with that?
Is it $12 million? I mean, if you tell me it was $12 million, then I believe you, but I thought it was a little bit more than that.
All right. And if ultimately, if you have multiple plaintiffs, how do you decide as the plaintiff's lawyer, or how does it work out that amounts of that total recovery get allocated to individual plaintiffs?
I mean, different cases are different ways.
Is it true that often the defense attorneys, the civil defense attorneys, will ask the plaintiff's attorneys how you want that allocated?
So I'm going to tell you guys, go back, watch this cross. I'm not going to go through all of it. He gets way down into the finances. Alex gets a little bit fidgety, gets a little frustrated. They end up getting a little bit nitpicky here. People saying, pick a side, Rob. No, it's not my job. My job is not to pick I don't pick sides. I basically give you analysis and I give you interpretation and I play devil's advocate. That's what I'm good at. So I'm not going to pick a side. I'm going to say when people are doing good things and say when people are doing bad things. And today, I thought there was good things on the defense, good things of prosecution. I think the prosecution needs to make more headway on the timeline because we haven't gotten there yet. I know they're going to do it tomorrow. This is kind of the last remark before we get out of here. This is after the jury has been excused. And of course, our favorite South Carolina senator loves to make remarks.
Would have to concede. I've been very as accommodating as I can throughout this. But
So hang on. Let me rewind a little bit.
The first thing in the morning, one's pathologist's testimony perhaps take 30 to 45 minutes on direct. I don't believe there's going to be much cross. The other one is a crime scene analyst who's testifying not about the whole crime scene, but specifically based on the pathologist's testimony about what happened in the feed room. Total, they should not take more than 2.5 hours. I wonder, since it's apparently going to go on for a while, if we might put them up tomorrow, either first thing in the morning or at the morning break. That's what Mr. Waters ought to do and get them out of here.
Papers,
I believe this cross is
microphones.
probably going to go into Monday anyway at the rate we're going. It's just an accommodation. They're not controversial. They're not going to opine on who killed who, when, and how. Just the mechanics of what happened.
All right. So Poot's asking to call a witness out of order. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a big hell no. Alex Murdaugh's on the stand doing cross-examination. No way in hell. No way. No. I get the tactic. Nice move. Nice try. I have these witnesses. It's going to be expensive if I have to kick them over next week. I understand that part. But you chose to put Alex on and then have other witnesses behind him. You could have left the trial. You could have left Alex as the last witness, but you didn't do that. And not just that, but the prosecution has the right, and every attorney has the absolute right to begin their cross-examination and have that cross-examination complete, uninterrupted. Period. End of story. Like that did no. There isn't. I don't know a single attorney that would say, you know what, I'm in the middle of my cross-examination. Sure, call a random witness, distract the jury from what we were just talking about in cross, interrupt the flow of my cross-examination, and just put some additional information out of context. No effing way. He did this, and I was like, no, there's no way you do this. Like, wow, you got to appreciate the balls, though. And I don't mean that way, but just like the gumption to do that. I don't know a lot of attorneys that had the guts to do that. Can't blame him for trying. just, you do you, Poot. And then you get another remark that's kind of funny in just a minute.
What says the state?
Your Honor, and I think the defense would have to concede, I've been very as accommodating as I can throughout this, but I do not want to interrupt my cross. They took a very long time today, and the state's entitled to the same consideration without interruption.
Can you project how many more hours you have?
Well, I'm actually didn't think it would take this long to get this far, but I think I've got some more financial to move through, and then we'll get to the other evidence. So
4 hours, 6
I'm
hours.
so bad at that, Your Honor. 3, 4, something like that. And if that's out at the outside.
So perhaps tomorrow afternoon we could
Your Honor,
get
obviously,
to one.
Judge needs to learn how to cross.
we could probably do this fairly quickly.
Boxing
Your
in,
Honor,
Judge.
just leave that door open. I'm going to keep them here, but if I have to keep them here over the weekend, the financial impact of that is huge.
You're losing your argument, Poot. You lost your
I
argument.
understand the dilemma, but I'm not going to require the state to
Interrupt the cross.
break up the cross-examination of this witness.
Well, and again, you know, as I sit here and listen to this, I could have sworn this was a murder case.
I will tell you right now, if I made that comment in my jurisdiction in front of a judge, Miss Morton, where's your checkbook? Oh, that was, I get the tone and I get what he's saying. And it makes perfect sense. That right there was made for the media.
For 2 hours now, we haven't heard the word murder once. And not criticizing the strategy, obviously denigrating his character is what this is about, but really not relevant to the issue of whether he killed him.
Credibility is an issue as relates to all witnesses
Yep.
in every case. But we'll adjourn until 9:30 tomorrow
Yep.
morning.
Yep. And the judge was like not having it. And honestly, I have been shocked that there haven't been sanctions in this freaking case. I don't understand why. I don't understand why there haven't been admonishments. Oh. Okay. All right. Let's do this. We're going to wind through super chats. Impressions for tomorrow, real quick, before I get to super chats. The idea that someone needed to make that comment. No. Everyone, let the pundits do it outside of court. Let me do it. Let the other commentators do it. Let Emily do it. Let Peter do it. Let everyone else do it. Let everyone make the commentary about that in a courtroom to a judge. To a judge. You don't disrespect the court that way, because that's what that is. That's disrespectful to the court. That's an argument the judge has no power to control. You are making an argument for no purpose because the judge can't do anything right there at all. You are just grandstanding. And I have been frustrated by that throughout this entire trial, whether it's been Metters grandstanding, just identical. He even did the clap. Identical. Creighton Waters grandstanding, Poot grandstanding. This court is frustrating. So that's my thought. Creighton Waters tomorrow, when he begins cross-examination, better begin at a point that gets us close to that June 7th date. I know he wants to go to the September date. I know he wants to go through all these things. He's got to find a better way to do it. He really does. He's going to lose a juror. And if you do that, you're in trouble. He has the perfect opportunity in having the defendant on the stand, an opportunity that I would not have imagined he would have in this trial. And he has that opportunity. Don't waste it. It's the same thing I've said about the defense when they call expert witnesses. Don't waste this opportunity. Take advantage of that situation. Get the information in. So we'll see. I mean, Colleton smells finances and he just goes like Bubba chasing chicken. That's what it is. Colleton and finances is Bubba chasing that chicken. So, yes, there will be Friday Night Frenzy tomorrow. I am getting messages that Wi-Fi apparently is decent, which means that I am going to bring a small setup with me tomorrow down to Texas, and Ian and I will very likely be live streaming from the very same location with my fancy tie, my wooden tie. Emily, if you're still here, this is my cool new tie. It's really cool. I like my new tie. Yes, it's wood. I think it's Paduke or Bloodwood. It's really cool. So Friday Night Frenzy will occur tomorrow, but yeah. So let's see what happens tomorrow. Cross will continue, and we will begin on this trial that continues forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. I imagine that we will not be done until the end of next week with redirect or with a rebuttal case. I cannot see a rebuttal case with all this evidence lasting for anything shorter than the next few days. Alex is going to be on the stand until probably the end of tomorrow, maybe late afternoon tomorrow. Then 2 witnesses, and then, 2 witnesses in the defense case. So defense case, I think, is going to probably wrap up on Monday, I would imagine. Then you figure the prosecution is going to have rebuttal testimony Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe leading into Thursday, depending on how much they want to put on. Colleton, don't focus on the finances, bud. You got it. Just do your timeline stuff. Yeah. And then figure closing arguments maybe by Thursday or Friday. Then it goes to the jury. So I figure by next week, sometime late next week, hopefully we'll have this to the jury. So this is the trial that never ends. Yes, it goes on and on, my friends. Some people started pontificating a long way ago. Oh, gosh. All right. So we're going to wrap up with Super Chats. Thank you guys for being here. I really do appreciate it. If you are still here, please hit the like button. It does a great deal. It really does mean a lot to us. If you see people chiming in the chat that you like, Emily was in the chat for a while. While Talk with Mike was in the chat for a while. Please go follow them. They do deliver great content. I love doing these streams. They're fun. I love getting the recap done at the end of the day. Am I exhausted? Yeah. Am I still going to be awake for another few hours? Uh-huh. Is it going to hurt waking up for that flight? Absolutely. Yeah. But thank you guys for being here. So please hit the like button, and subscribe if you like the content. We're still going to be doing this into next week, apparently. So thank you guys very much. Okay. Catching up on Super Chats. Veronica, thank you very much. Why didn't they ask AM who he thought he did the murder? It's not relevant. The state has to prove it. Island, thank you very much. Bringing up the badge and the lights now telegraph weakness to me, as did bickering over semantics. If it was relevant, why not mention it before now? That's a point. BS, thank you. Knowing they had such weak case for the murder and such a strong one for the financial crimes, which he'll be incarcerated, why did they go forward with this? Seems like they just wasted taxpayer dollars. They don't view it that way. The state has their prerogative in bringing their case, and they're allowed to try that case as they see fit. Before I go too much further, I am seeing reminders that I need to end this poll. And I'll put up another one. I'll read Super Chats. So let me see here. Let's do this. Done. We're going to end the poll. So the poll was, after Alex testified today, did his testimony sway you in one direction or the other? The results of the poll are, after 6,200 votes, 33% of you are saying yes, leaning more towards guilt. 24% of you, no, still not guilty. 21% of you, yes, leaning more not guilty. And 20% of you are saying no, still guilty. Interesting in that Of these options, Alex testifying impacted about 44% of you, none. It didn't have an impact on your assessment of the case. And I think that's a fair way of assessing it. And then for the remainder of you guys, it's a split that's right about, not 50-50. What do you call it? 60-40, 33% to 21%. So you see some of the risk in putting the defendant on the stand. So it's pretty interesting. I like doing these polls because they're really fascinating to see how you guys are viewing this evidence. So as far as what we're going to do now, let's see here. Let's do this one. We're going to ask this question. This is one I've been dying to ask. Does the financial crimes, does continue more evidence wrongdoing sway your opinion on AM? Yes and no. I like that one. So that one we're going to call that the Colleton Waters poll. Does more evidence of the financial wrongdoing sway your opinion? Have you hit that point yet? So thank you very much, BS. Very much appreciated. Becca, thank you. I'm just desensitized with financial crimes. Our jurors, they might be. It's a good point. They've heard so much of it. Shannon, I want to go back to this one. Jojo, thank you very much. OJ spent $5.9 million on his defense, but the prosecution spent $9 million. What happens when you don't have millions? That is a problem. That is one of the points that I address in people making critical comments about Mr. Murdaugh and the experts he brings on and whether they're qualified or not qualified or how much they're being paid. The state's resources are essentially endless compared to yours in 99.9% of cases. So it's something to be wary of. You don't really ever want to end up on the other side of that machine. Why did he turn off his phone that night? I don't know. And I don't know that we actually have firm evidence that it was physically turned off. I think we have evidence that it disconnected from the network, which the defense has tried to explain as being signal outages in the area. Rather, like walk around the property and you lose signal. No name for you, dang it. Thank you. According to Anthony Cook in the HBO documentary, it was Gloria Satterfield that called Paul by the nickname Paul Paul. What won't Alex steal? I don't know. I'm not going to watch the documentary. I have some opinions about the documentary that I'm going to kind of keep to myself. I think that the documentaries, more than actually providing information, they love to provide drama. That's how they make their money, in drama. I'm not trying to give you guys drama. I'm trying to give you guys analysis. The drama actually just takes place in front of what we're seeing, and I'm just breaking those down. I think the documentaries, when you put the music, tone, narratives to it, I'm not a big fan of documentaries about this kind of stuff. I really am not. A lot of them get it wrong. A lot. Think back to some of the trial century we've covered. So, but it is curious. T-Mac, thank you. I did some research on Waters. He seems to want to be the next Giuliani for South Carolina. Did you feel he was trying to get AM to admit other people helped him? It seemed kind of that way. He was doing his best today, trying to get a lot of stuff in, power, etc. He was trying to imply that there were people that had given him position and title and power, or who acquiesced to his procuring that position, title, and power, that perhaps should not be in power. So it's a possibility that it could be a political move. I don't know. Jen B, thank you. Is Alex Murdaugh a vile liar and cheat? Absolutely. But Waters and Company did not meet the burden. Unless they have something huge in rebuttal, the unfortunate truth is Alex Murdaugh hasn't been proven a murderer. Only outcome I see is not guilty or hung jury. Jen B, that is a fair assessment. I'm not going to judge anyone that reaches assessment in the opposite direction. I think that anyone can view this evidence and reach either conclusion. That's the wild thing about this case that's unique to a lot of the cases we've covered. This one doesn't really come down strong one way or the other. It can be argued both ways. Katrina Raven, why would Alex text or call Maggie to tell her he was going to see his mom? I don't know. When he had just been there with her, I don't know. I imagine Creighton's going to ask the question. Katrina Turner, why can't you hear the guinea fowl? Catnip. While it makes your kitty nuts, it settles domestic birds down. I imagine there's some people in the chat who have different foul who are going to appreciate that advice. Thank you, Katrina. Amber, thank you. If he's not guilty and he's found not guilty, do they reopen the investigation, try and find out who actually killed Paul or Maggie? Or is that it? That's a judgment call for the state. They're going to weigh the resources it took to try him originally. They're going to weigh the liability, or rather the risk of trying somebody else when they try to convince a jury that it was him in the first place. Generally speaking, you don't get a second trial of a different person. Misty, thank you very much. Did you like the judge's ruling on the 5th that he was all in or all out? Judge didn't read your research from last night. I think that enough was let in the way of relevance. Not only that, here's the thing. It gets mooted out. It gets completely mooted out. And I think that if the judge, regardless of what the judge said, it's either all in or all out. I think there's an argument to be made, at least briefed, during some of the direct, or during some of the cross, if not opened up during direct, that if you have overstepped a bound, that there might be an additional advisement given, that the questions being asked of you were not within the scope of what was expected at that moment, blah, blah, blah. You get the advice, you might have the right to plead the 5th. There are occasions when in the middle of testimony, something completely random comes up and that occurs. But the defense mooted that out because they went straight into the finances. The defense went and talked about that in their opening or in their case in chief, which means that if there was any argument remaining, it's no longer there. Logan Axley, thank you very much. Do you think it's the little anecdotes, longer answers humanize him to the jury and help sway the not guilty? I don't know. Jurors read that differently. Long answers will win some, long answers will lose some. Professor of Logic, thank you very much. If you would convict based off your BS emotions, ignore the terrible case made, then you don't actually believe in justice. Take away him being a garbage human in general and what's left. Professor of Logic, I don't judge you for making that conclusion. I think that's you can reach that with this evidence. Tiffany, thank you. If we know he's lying about the kennels, can we go back and observe his behavior while he's lying and compare it to other statements? The jury might. Baby Gator, thank you. If there's so many threats, why didn't they subpoena the social media records? I was curious about that. We'll see what comes of that. Let me see here. Kelly D, disappointing day. Can't understand how prosecution was allowed to discuss pending financial crimes in a murder trial. Isn't it self-incriminating? It was relevant to provide context and its character evidence. The rules of the court kind of govern this, and these are previous rulings that the judge explained along the way. It's hard to catch up. I do know that Emily's been doing quick picks. Lawyer, also has been doing recaps well back into when these things were being discussed. I've been doing the recaps when I realized that trying to cover a whole week during Friday Night Frenzy was impossible. So you can go take a look at those summaries. JRA, did paranoia make him kill Paul and Maggie found pills? I don't know. It's a question. Gingy Probs, thank you very much. Two things. One, Alex Murdaugh at the kennel gives me heartburn. He says post-Guinea situation, he left immediately. Why so fast? That's what I made the comment about before. He says, I got out of there. Other than the record. One or two, I can't figure out how to become a member. The member, you should be able to, there should be a join button. And if not, you can actually look in the description of the video. I think I have a join button down there. So thank you, Gingy Probs. Burger Berries, thank you very much. Does anyone just sending a snap in poor reception? I get the unable to send, try again later, and just have to hit retry prompt until it sends. I have been curious about why the defense hasn't brought that up. Because I don't remember if the metadata shows the record time. It just shows the sent time. But in either event, Alex admitted being down there. Veronica, thank you. Why not call Buster immediately to check he is safe? I don't know. Cindy T, thank you. One thing caught me with Nolan. Nolan questioning. Paul Murdaugh kept guns in his truck, usually cleaned his truck at kennels. Truck in for service, cleaned in that morning. Guns at kennels, still not sure it was AM though. The truck was checked. We have that from previous testimony, and the guns were found in that truck, I think. I would go back and double check that though. Vera Nice, thank you. Question, why not call Buster immediately and check the safe? I saw that one. I agree. EJ, 4 years ago today was the boat accident. Weird. What do you think to see? What do you need to see to get you to guilty? What do you think Waters should start with tomorrow? Timeline. Get me the timeline. Cross-examine him on all of those things that happened during that period of time. Take me from 8:30 p.m. 8:30 p.m. Walk me through from 8:30 p.m. up until 9:06. Cross him on every freaking question. Ask him everything during that period of time and see what happens. That's what I need. Because he's opened the door for it. Ask him those questions. Rambo, thank you. A 6-month-old video of an involuntary ex-worker claimed Murdaugh did bad things to her. Don't know if it's true, but sure would speak to his tendency to violence. Anybody know more about this? I don't know, Rambo. Honestly, I don't know. If the prosecution had any information on it, I can guarantee they would have brought it in. I don't know. Marie the Dice Dragon, thank you. For me, you lied to all these people that you say you cared about, and they had no clue. Emphasis says he can very much be lying to you right now. That's the point Creighton was trying to drive home more than any other. And he does it towards the end of his cross, where he does it rather effectively. He asked the question of, and you sat down right across from them and told them that they should trust you with their case. And he's looking at the jury when he's asking the question. Great question. Because it is that suggestion that you were able to convince these people in their most vulnerable state. How can we believe that you're not trying to convince the jury? It's a good argument. Kathy Swanson, thank you. My son, when in active addiction, was extremely paranoid and lied a lot, and thought the police were following him. Kathy, yes, I have dealt with a lot of people who are dealing with either past incarceration and past arrests, or you see it with spouses. When the breakdown of the marriage occurs, where there's divorce pending, or there's doubts or trust issues, there's paranoia that begins existing, or you see it with drugs and addiction. Paranoia is a real thing, and it can explain inconsistent statements. I just wish he would actually say, "I don't remember," rather than fill the gap. Q Reverie, thank you. I thought the state's best today was on nicknames. The nickname stuff, the pawpaw. The only interesting thing about that one was it wasn't used in interviews, but I don't know how much I read into it. It felt uncomfortable, but apart from making me feel uncomfortable, I don't know that it got me anywhere, because it's an interview. Are you going to call him Pawpaw in an interview? And I don't know. I will say that if it swayed you, that's fair. If it didn't sway you, that is also fair. It's something personal. Debbie Jacobs, thank you. The pattern I am seeing with Alex Murdaugh only admits the truth when the evidence is undeniable. Be safe. And thank you, Rob. Thank you, Debbie. Marty McFly is a dad with a son at the same age as Paul was, and watching how Alex reacts and talks about Paul, I believe there is zero chance Alex pulled that trigger on Paul. Was he there? Maybe. Kill Mags? Maybe. Marty, that's a fair assessment. I don't have any reason to question that. That's fair based on what you heard. Misty, thank you. Creighton Waters is trying to get Alex to flip. Alex flipped Creighton into a temper fit. I think they both quibbled back and forth. I think at the end of the day, Creighton might have lost a little bit of his direction, but I think Alex didn't really gain a lot of points in some of his responses. Veronica, thank you. Questions. There's a random murder killing his family. Why not call Buster to check if he's safe? Not paranoid about FC getting uncovered. You made this comment earlier. I don't disagree with that. I think it's a question a lot of the jurors have as well. Rosalind, thank you. My dad was a radio newsman. He had lights and police radio in his car. Interesting. That's kind of cool. I mean, not really, because it might be illegal, but I hadn't really thought that. So that's okay. All right. Terry, thank you. I felt that his testimony showed how manipulative he can be and how he uses power to his advantage. That is also a very fair assessment. Susie Q, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for the recaps every day. The trial is addicting and exhausting. It is both of those things. Like it is watching a train wreck in slow motion. Like you cannot turn away, but it exhausts you to no end. So yeah. Sarah Bellum, hands up if you're here for the hat hair. Oh my. Joining late because hubby B-Day dinner. Happy birthday to the hub. Thanks, Rob, for all you do. Intrigued to get your take on today. Thank you. SGTH, thank you. No such thing as always or never. True. Music to my soul, thank you. If AM wanted to appear honest on the stand, then he shouldn't have thrown Miss Shelley under the bus. Who does he think is more credible? She is. That is a question that spurns an interesting... The state is now in a position put there by the defense. whether intentionally so or just by happenstance, but I don't really believe in happenstance in trials. The state is in a position where they now have to recall Ms. Shelley. And you might recall that Ms. Shelley, after she testified, a GoFundMe was put up by her family members about the fact that she testified honestly and that Mr. Tinsley contributed to that GoFundMe. If Ms. Shelley is brought up again on recall, while those questions must be made sensitively, you can bet that there will be questions about financial gain for testimony. It was one of the things that it's one thing I criticize about a lot of this court procedure. One of the reasons why we have a rule excluding witnesses and releasing them from testimony or subpoena is to instruct them as to what is proper outside of the courtroom during the trial while they are still subject to that subpoena. Ms. Shelley if she is recalled, and I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. What I'm going to say is that GoFundMe might present a problem. It might present questions that are going to be asked. And it kind of hurts my heart that those questions are asked of a person that when I watched them testify, I didn't think had incentive or motive to lie. So I actually kind of blame the state for that. It was their witness. They should have instructed that witness. And I kind of blame the court for not setting those rules. We're going to have to see when that comes up. Shelley, thank you very much. I was married to an opiate addict, very successful and professional. Deception, paranoia, loss of income, and eventually physical violence ensued. Not uncommon. I'm very sorry, Shelley. Not justifying his behavior, but this reeks of drug dependency. Shelley, that is also a fair assessment to make. He testified what he testified to as far as the opiate addiction is consistent with what you see in addicts. Lori Jean Lister, thank you. Falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus. Lies in one, lies in all. Maybe. Tara Pezek, thank you. I found Alex's testimony to be third person-ish. I thought he may be securing an end game of insanity or unfit. Nope. No insanity or unfit. Nope. That would have had to been pled a long time ago. And no, he has testified. He is more than fit to stand trial and stand sentencing. So that is not an out for him at this point. B. Hartling, thank you. Major red flag for me was when Alex Murdaugh said he didn't sit across from his victims looking into their eyes because they weren't there for when the disbursement papers were done. There was a lot of quibbling over that. And it seemed like he was very easy to admit I did wrong, I stole, I shouldn't have done it. He kept repeating that over and over, but when it came to specifics, he really didn't want to get into it. And he needs to do that if he's going to go that route. If you're going to go the route of I'm admitting my faults, therefore trust me, you have to admit all of them as honestly as you can. Elise, thank you. Blue light ambulance chaser. Maybe. T-Mac, thank you. His tell is that tongue of his. It reminds me of that male doctor in the Depp trial. So annoying. Dr. Spiegel. I don't know. We'll see. Blame Blue 2023. It was proven today that he is a horrible human. Not so much a murderer. There was a heck of a lot of proof on the horrible human part. It was hard to listen to as an attorney. It wasn't easy. Bon, thank you. What's your thoughts on Netflix's documentary coming out in the middle of this trial? I don't really have thoughts on it. I think Netflix was trying to do it to maximize profit. That's their incentive. That's their motivation. Like I said, I'm not watching it. I hope the jurors don't see it. It's not going to sway me one way or the other. I'm not going to even watch it right now. Dana Parfait, thank you. Just not enough for the prosecution for me to peg him pulling the trigger on both. They have proved everything else but his murder charges. Dana, I am kind of with you, and I'm waiting to just. I'm going to hold out hope the prosecution can get back there, but we'll see. Keely Hananan, thank you. Court TV reporters, jurors crying, gave him tissues. Interesting. Sarah Crockett, off topic, but does anyone know if the airstrip was used, pilot's license, or aircraft owned? I don't think there's been any testimony on that. Connie J, question, is he trying to stay out of state prison and go to federal? There's been speculation in that regard if he pleads the financials out. in a federal prosecution that he would go to federal prison, not state. Cheryl Moran, thank you. Yes, Alex go to jail for financial crimes, but Maggie and Paul deserve justice. They do, but do they get justice by someone going to jail that didn't pull the triggers? And do they get justice by a state investigation that went so awry that they might not actually find the person who actually pulled the trigger? I don't know the answer to either of those questions. You are right. They deserve justice. They do. But justice does not mean putting someone who was not proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in jail for a crime. That we don't embrace that version of justice. Kat in Virginia, Rob, you sound like a golf commentator. He got in the weeds today. He did. Stephanie Coker, thank you. I think Waters made financial stuff interesting today by saying you stole above the $1 million you got paid. That affected me. Also, fair assessment. Rosalind Duke, thank you. Wish you guys were coming to Dallas. I'd take you on a JFK tour. Promise you'd love it. That'd be very curious. I haven't been to Dallas, I don't think. I was born in Houston, then moved to Lake Jackson, but then I was out of there in South Carolina. But Dallas sounds fun. Janet, thank you. This is a murder trial, plain and simple. It is. ALM Pharma D. Rob, you skipped the I did them so bad. I did skip that. I think Creighton's going to hit tomorrow. We'll see. Chumfelt, thank you. No defense can't argue possible sentence in finance crimes in this murder trial, but AM can say bluntly, I've confessed to life sentence to financial crimes and I didn't murder my family. Jury can't unhear. He did that with the bloodstain analysis. Holy smokes. I'll bring that up tomorrow if I can. He basically brought in and threatened the prosecution like, I'm going to tell them everything about this bloodstain analysis, that you said that there was blood on my clothes that wasn't on my clothes, and it wasn't until that analyst came back and was proven false that you had any question about the clothes I was wearing in that Snapchat video. Damn it, missed opportunity. I should have brought that up. Ugh. I'll bring it up tomorrow. I promise. I will bring it up tomorrow. Yeah. So thank you, Chumfelt. Much appreciated. Chumfelt's an attorney in that area, by the way, North Carolina attorney. Thank you. Fayette, thank you. Best steak ever ate was San Antonio at Josephine Street. Awesome. Thank you. Zoe Lovell, thank you. They knew that to deny the murders, he would have to admit the finances. Their case is weak for murder, so no any way this jury is going to have him. I don't know. It can sway this juror. It really can. Or the jury. Janet Studer, thank you very much. But they are not afraid of the judge, and you are. LOL. They're not afraid of the judge, and I am. I hold my professional conduct in very, very, very high regard. There is nothing more important to a lawyer than their reputation, especially reputation in front of the bench. The last thing you want to be is an attorney that's known as a bad reputation or someone who skirts the lines or skirts the rules or plays fast and loose with those rules. There's a reason that a lot of individuals whom I represent are either former employees, associates, friends of judges because of that reason. So I hold myself to a very high standard. If you disagree with that, that's fine. I don't blame you. But no, I'm not going to make disparaging remarks about a judge. And I do challenge them on the facts. And I have been told, I have been told to have my checkbook ready or to that I might need a toothbrush when I came back. So that does happen. But thank you for the comment, Janet, and for giving me the opportunity to respond. Robin, question. Thank you very much. Question, Rob, do you think AM needs to just say, I'm a thief, I'm an addict, I'm a liar, I'm an a-hole, but I did not off my family? That's the gist of what he's saying. That's what he's trying to say. But Creighton isn't going to let him get away with just saying, I'm all of these things. He's actually going to describe what each of those things are. Ryan Man YYC, thank you. Nice tie. Ian's really going to love it. Nope, he's not getting this one. KWNY Upstate, AM should have thanked the prosecutor for spending most of his time proving financial crimes he already admitted and offered to shake his hand. Possible. Jen Burns, thank you. Hey, what's your emoji? Can you talk about how detailed you get with witness prep? Are there rules? Not really rules in how to prep a witness. Generally speaking, you don't want a witness to sound scripted. I will go over outlines with my witnesses beforehand, but I don't want them to sound scripted. So I will try to, what I'll do is I'll sit down with them and I'll just have a discussion. And during that discussion, I will have a notepad and I'll take detailed notes on the different things. And then I'll make a bullet point list. And what I'll do is I'll try to repeat that discussion or some version of it in a different order of events when they're testifying on the stand. The last thing you want is for a witness to sound scripted. Some witnesses want their questions read out or written out to them beforehand. I don't do that. It sounds fake. I don't let it happen. So that's probably the best way I can explain that. Thank you, Jen. Lola Udi, thank you very, very much for the generous super chat. Enjoy some Texas barbecue. Best to you and Ian. Thank you. I will do my very best to do just that. Nicole Christine, thank you. What do you most want to see Creighton ask tomorrow? Give me that timeline. Have a safe flight. Things always get interesting in trial when law tubers are on planes. Emily made that comment earlier when she was in the chat. Aunt Jen, Ohio, SBF, new charges on FNF. I saw those. I'm going to pull it up. I have to review it. Dagan, thank you. I'm new to your channel. What do you offer? Lawyer, pro prosecution, pro defense, education as a juror. What's your angle and why should I follow? Dagan, thank you very much. I am a civil litigator. So I litigate family law cases, domestic relations litigation, and bankruptcy law. So a lot of my background comes in civil litigation and trial law, or rather trial practice. And then bankruptcy gives me the context of statutory interpretation and a lot of federal rules and law. Apart from that, I'm also a woodworker. So I make stuff. And the making stuff is fun because it gives you the ability to decompress, and it also gives you the ability to just have a better understanding of some of the stuff that you're seeing in the real world. I'm an uncle to several nieces and nephews that I love dearly, no children of my own. And I love to just help people all the best I can. I try to make this a safe place for everyone to be involved. All of the things that you will see behind me were made by different people that are subscribers or people who are contributors to the channel. They make these things or send these things because I tell people routinely and repeatedly, go make something, you'll feel better. I don't care what it is. If it's drawing on a piece of paper, if it's pulling out a coloring book, make something, you will feel better. Because it's a great way to live your life in a very, very, very happy way. Yeah. So that's me. That's my story. Channel got started during the Debt Be Heard, got pulled into YouTube, kind of quasi-voluntarily. And then we've just been doing this. We've been doing this ever since. I still run my law practice with another law partner. It's just me and one law partner, and we practice in Northern Virginia. So that's my story. Thank you, Dagan. I hope that convinced you. Lori Holt, thank you. Guilty as hell. Where is the blue shirt? I don't know, Lori. I don't know. Della, thank you. Thank you very much. State too much financial appeal gaining ground. It's possible, Della. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. KWNY Upstate, human life is not priceless, so why should we be on the hook for hugely expensive prosecution costs? Our taxes are already too high. This is ridiculous. KWNY Upstate, that is why prosecutors are oftentimes elected. Their judgment calls and the exceedingly high cost of prosecutions that might not have merit leads them to be kicked out of office. So just keep in mind when you see these things on the news, just keep that in mind. The MB, thank you for the super sticker. Emma, him, thank you. Some people, some think they brought the lawsuit first to get AM to plead guilty to everything so they don't have to have multiple other trials. Thoughts? Money saver. Nope. Murder trials more expensive than financial crimes trials. Even this one. Plus, they had the financial crimes trial dead to rights. This one was a stretch. This is a hard case. This is a hard case to prove. The experts they had to bring in, the investigation they had to bring in, there's a lot of bad in this person, but this is a hard case to prove for murder that he committed. Kristen M96, thank you. Thoughts on South Carolina AG Alan Wilson being at the table the past few days? He was sitting near Cousin Vinny. I did not see that. I don't really know that I have thoughts on that. I think that there's been comments about politics. I'll let you guys reach your own conclusion on that one. But yeah, thank you. Becca, thank you. Could the state try and convict him for trying to have someone else do the murders if he's found and not guilty? Found not guilty under this one, technically speaking, they could bring a conspiracy charge. Whether that would succeed, I don't know. And whether they would, I don't think so. Gab Liz, thank you. I said since day one, maybe he pulled on shorts to try and turn Paul for real. I do weird things. I know it's weird, but I have a comment from 2 weeks ago. Interesting. Huh. Okay. I can see that. Della, I assume not one, assume not guilty. 2, state must prove there is no 3. True. Lauren, thank you. Does his testimony here negate the money trials? Seems like a waste of time and money to move forward with those if he's admitting to that on the stand. That's why people are speculating he's going to plead out to a federal charge and kind of bypass any state charges. Susan, thank you for the super chat. Sarah Lee, thank you. You just skipped me, Rob. I didn't mean to, Sarah. I'm sorry. I've been trying to collect it. Honestly, these chats have been really I've loved the fact that all of you guys are here, and I'm doing my very best to get everything. But I'm sorry, Sarah. So do my best. Machiavellian cheese, Sarah, thank you. Alex Murdaugh. Alex Murdaugh is too much a coward to kill. He paid someone. That's possible. Marie the Dice Dragon called them different nicknames in interviews, so it feels off. You're allowed to feel that way. I don't know what it did to, and the jurors are allowed to feel that way too. Maddie Retman, question: can AM use attorney-client privilege after getting disbarred? Not sure why CW keeps asking about his conversation with clients. Attorney-client privilege in the context of communications that Alex Murdaugh had. Look, so if he was an attorney at the time that he had the communication, the privilege remains. It just does. I don't know about Chris Wilson asking about the conversation with clients. I will have to look into that a little bit separately. Thank you for the question, though. I'm curious on that. Robin, thank you very much. BS is psych/addictions. I noted with AM's repetition of hurting people. If in a 12-step program, step 8, revisiting moral inventory, making amends, resonate with some members of the jury in favor of innocence. Might. That's an interesting observation, though, Robin. Very interesting indeed. Roxana, thank you. He admitted to all the financial crimes on the stand. Wouldn't that mean he will spend the rest of his life behind bars? Yep. Would this guilty, not guilty decide if he goes federal or state prison? If he's guilty on this, goes to state. Maybe. Jolly Rogers James from court said one of the jurors put a blanket over her face during AM's testimony. Huh. I am curious about that one. I am not questioning James's assessment on that, but I will say if a judge sees that a juror is not looking, they will stop the trial and take a break. There was a break at some point in time. The judge kind of took one pretty quick, and we thought it was like a pee break. That might explain it, but if a juror's not looking, the judge stops it and tells them they have to watch. Chris Mullen, this is where I get confused. It's not a yes or no question. The prosecution wants him to repeat a conversation verbatim. Why is admitting that he lied not enough? What if he can't remember the verbatim? He has to say he can't remember verbatim, and he did a lot of the dodging game in the conversation stuff because Creighton asked him if there was any conversation he remembered, and he could have picked one, and that was where he started getting a little evasive. But you're right in the setting where Creighton was asking him, "Did you have a conversation here?" And he's like, "I don't remember." That's fine. But when Creighton expands the scope, you have to kind of remain reasonable in your response. Dana, thank you very much for the super chat. Molly, thank you. Discussing the disabilities of the people he stole from, more prejudicial than probative. I get for motive, but it feels so far. A lot of people are feeling that way. I don't disagree. Sayatha, thank you. He stated he knew case, yet short answers on the murder. That's a question. Emily Emily Saloa. I really appreciate all the lawyers giving commentary. I know without it, I'd probably be heavily biased towards guilty based on media perception. That's why we're here, to be honest. Baby Gator, and I thank you for being here. Baby Gator, I wanted him to say, I did 99 crimes, but murder ain't one. If he gets acquitted, AM should wear the khaki pants and blue shirt while he is on the stand, CC Walters. I think he kind of testified that they're gone based on a weight change. It was interesting. Lynn, sent you a package, USPS. Hope you got it. Thank you, Lynn. I'll double check. Thank you. You can DM me separately. Rob, I love you. I'm hoping my chat was skipped accidentally. It was, Sarah. I promise you, they're not skipped intentionally. I try to pull up every single one. I really do. Kathy Swanson, thank you. What clothes did he have on in the South Carolina, in the SC Snapchat video? Snapchat video that was him messing with the tree was khaki pants and a blue shirt that was a button down. Those were not asked about by SLED until way late in the case. And they were not recovered by SLED at any point. So they're an open question. Tara, thank you very much. It seems a mistake for the defense to have called him today. Such elusive testimony with so much time that passed in pending trials. One would think he'd have his ducks more in a row. He was an attorney. You never know what this is going to look like until you take the stand. And even then, you're not guaranteed to know. And it's not so much a mistake by the attorneys. It is his right to testify, even against advice of counsel. He has the absolute right. He just has to be advised of that right, and he has to make that decision knowingly. It was his choice. Debbie, thank you. AM sounded like he was concocting a story to match evidence and testimonies already given, not authentic. I used to live in Lake Jackson and Clute. That's awesome. Thank you, Debbie. And yeah, that's fair. Zoe, either one. What can come out now to convince you of 100% guilty? 100% guilty? He admits on stand. Guilty, a lot of work on cross. Kathy, thank you for the super sticker. SGTH, don't you think from a juror's perspective there should be a gotcha moment from this cross-examination? I.e., you have your perp on the stand. Ask him whatever you want regarding the reason they're there. Open the door. It depends. They all look for that. With an attorney, it's hard to get. So they look for that. It's not really that one. You actually want the information more than anything else. So, but thank you, SGTH. For the kids, thank you. But asking him for specific conversations with clients, isn't that privileged? Not when the clients have waived, which the clients in this case, because they have an adverse interest against their former lawyer, they have all waived. Once you sue the lawyer, generally speaking, that privilege, especially because the client is the one giving the statement, that's no longer there. Dana Henry, thank you. He was at the kennels at 8:44. Phone stopped at 8:49. Who else could have done it? That is not the question. I know that that's the question everyone wants to ask. They all want to ask, who else could have done it? Who else could have done it? That's not the question. It cannot be the question under our legal system, period. The state has to prove not that there was nobody else that could have done it. They actually have to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that he was the one that actually pulled the triggers. They must prove that. It's not a matter of eliminate all other possibilities and this is what you got. They actually have to prove that he did it. You can do that via circumstantial evidence, but it's got to be beyond any reasonable doubt. Thank you, Dana. I do appreciate the comment and you guys being here. Okay, guys, that is it. This ended up being almost a 3-hour live stream, and I've still got to pack. Love talking to every single one of you. I love that you guys are here. If you are still here, please hit the like button. Please like the stream. It really means a lot to me. I have put in a lot of time during this week to try and do these recaps, and I've had fun doing it. And I love getting your input on all of this stuff. Let me do this. Let me end that last poll that we got. And the poll, does more evidence on financial crimes convince you? 78% said no, 21% said yes. Interesting. I'm very curious about that. Again, thank you all. I very much appreciate it. Della getting this last one, sled lie, grand jury to AM to get in the first place. That's true. That bothered me quite a bit. Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I will hopefully catch you guys tomorrow from a different location in Texas. Let me get to packing, and I will see you guys next time.